Chapter 1842. Damn it! Jin Chilong cursed under his breath as he looked at the flames rushing towards him. Although Jin Chilong wasn't an alchemist and didn't know that the flames Ningyu summoned were ranked 5th on the mystic flame list, the demonic lotus flame, he knew that the flames Ningyu summoned were very powerful. At the very least, with his current strength, it was impossible for him to face the flames head-on. You forced me to do this. With a cold expression, Jin Chilong stomped his feet on the ground again and rushed out. However, this time, Jin Chilong didn't choose Ningyu but Ninglu. Since I can't face the flames head-on, then no problem. I'll settle for the next best thing and capture your friend first. Moreover, as long as I can capture your friend, I might be able to obtain the flames. If I can tame this flame, my strength can at least double. Jin Chilong thought to himself as he rushed towards Ninglu. You two, go and help. Meng Chang'an's attention had always been on Jin Chilong and Ningyu. When he saw Jin Chilong rush towards Ninglu, he immediately decided to let Sun Feng and Chang Tian help. Ningyu had the demonic lotus flame, so it was inevitable that Jin Chilong was afraid of him. But Ninglu didn't have the demonic lotus flame. Jin Chilong was afraid of Ningyu, but he wasn't afraid of Ninglu. The human demon had repeatedly told him that Ningyu couldn't die. Ningyu's friends couldn't die either. Thinking of the human demon's words when he took that thing from the Alchemist Union, Meng Chang'an felt that he had to ensure the safety of Ningyu and his friends. We'll go help. Hearing Meng Chang'an's words, Sun Feng and Chang Tian were slightly dumbfounded. Jin Chilong was extremely powerful. If the two of them went, they would only be cannon fodder. Forget it, you two deal with him. I'll go help personally. Meng Chang'an thought about it and felt that what Sun Feng and Chang Tian said made sense. Even Ningyu couldn't suppress Jin Chilong with the demonic lotus flame, let alone Sun Feng and Chang Tian. Shio. After giving a hurried order, Meng Chang'an forced the bully he was fighting to retreat and rushed towards Jin Chilong. Rumble. Meng Chang'an had just forced the tyrant back when Sun Feng and Chang Tian hurriedly acted as if they were facing a great enemy. Meng Chang'an's opponent was a peak sky supreme. Sun Feng and Chang Tian were only at the initial phase heavenly sovereign realm, not to mention that they weren't talented. Therefore, they could only give it their all to deal with a pinnacle heavenly sovereign. Ha ha ha, Ningyu, I've captured your friend, why would I be afraid of you? Not good. Jin Chilong's speed was very fast. In practically a blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Ninglu. However, before Jin Chilong could finish his maniacal laughter, his expression suddenly turned cold, and he quickly retreated. The reason why Jin Chilong retreated was none other than Meng Chang'an coming over. In the everlasting cave, Meng Chang'an's cultivation was also at the peak of the Sky Supreme realm. Jin Chilong was very clear of his own strength. In a one-on-one battle, he should be able to contend against Meng Chang'an. But now that Meng Chang'an had launched a sneak attack, he could only choose to retreat. Otherwise, if Meng Chang'an's sneak attack succeeded, he would probably have to bear the consequences. Meng Chang'an, have you hardened your heart to go against me? Retreating a few steps to avoid Meng Chang'an's attack, Jin Chilong's expression turned cold, and he said, Our Jin family is not to be trifled with. Do you know how many of our Jin family descended from the higher planes this time? Ningyu, how about the two of us join forces to deal with Jin Chilong? Meng Chang'an didn't even look Jin Chilong in the eye. He moved his feet, walking straight towards Ningyu, and said, But you have to lend me your demonic lotus flame. You want to borrow my demonic lotus flame? Ningyu's expression changed slightly, and at the same time, he secretly raised his guard. One must always be on guard against others. Don't look at how Meng Chang'an wanted to help him now, but who knew what he was planning? What if Meng Chang'an didn't return the demonic lotus flame after defeating Jin Chilong? It wasn't that Ningyu didn't trust Meng Chang'an, but that he was unaccountably solicitous. Ningyu didn't think that it was his charisma that convinced Meng Chang'an. Because ever since his rebirth, he had never seen Meng Chang'an. Meng Chang'an helping him was completely unreasonable. A few days ago, Human Demon came to Pill Emperor City and took something from my hands. How could Meng Chang'an not know of Ningyu's worries? His mouth moved, and he sent a soul message to Ningyu, and before Human Demon left, He told me that you would come to Pill Emperor City in a while, and that I must ensure your safety. Human demon. Hearing this, Ningyu's expression slightly improved. After thinking for a while, Ningyu sent a soul message. Do you know where senior human demon is now? Shaking his head, Meng Chang'an said, after human demon took that thing, he said he wanted to find a place to rest. I felt that he would come to Wu Hung Cave, so I brought people here to find him. Human demon might be in Wu Hung Cave. Ningyu's first thought was that it was impossible. After all, there were blue-clothed martial artists and single-horned monsters inside Wu Hung Cave. There was no reason for a powerhouse like human demon to come to this place to take risks. But thinking about it, Ningyu felt that the possibility was very high. As the saying goes, the most dangerous place is the safest place. Finding a place to rest inside Wu Hung Cave, the safety factor was very high, and he would almost not be disturbed by others. The more he thought about it, the more Ningyu felt that this possibility was very high. It was just that now was not the time to contact human demon. He had to get rid of Jin Chilong first. I can lend you the demonic lotus flame to use, but I want a drop of your blood essence. Ningyu didn't think too much and said in a deep voice. No problem. Meng Chang'an was even more straightforward than Ningyu. He swung his right hand, directly forcing out a drop of blood essence, and threw it to Ningyu. Pa. Receiving Meng Chang'an's blood essence, Ningyu carefully threw it into the storage ring to preserve. With Meng Chang'an's blood essence, Ningyu would not fear Meng Chang'an defecting. Because even if Meng Chang'an defected, he also had the confidence to use this drop of blood essence to find Meng Chang'an. Of course, all of this was built on the premise that he could escape in the end. If he could not even leave the Wu Hung Cave, then saying anything was pointless. You guys are courting death. Jin Chilong was so angry that his face turned green, his nose crooked. He wanted to threaten Meng Chang'an, but he did not think that Meng Chang'an did not even look at him. Since he could not threaten Meng Chang'an, then he immediately changed tactics and decided to deal with Meng Chang'an. But Jin Chilong was not a fool. He knew that after Meng Chang'an obtained Ningyu's flame, his strength would definitely increase a lot. Hence, he secretly contacted the three bullies, wanting to give Meng Chang'an a fatal blow. Whoosh! His figure flashed. Jin Chilong was the first to rush towards Meng Chang'an. Jin Chilong's mission was very arduous. Not only did he have to forcefully resist Meng Chang'an's first attack, but he also had to create opportunities for the three bullies. Chapter 1843. Ningyu, go and help Sunfeng and the rest. As for Jin Chilong, leave him to me. Meng Chang'an caught the demonic lotus flame that Ningyu tossed over. His eyes burned with passion. Meng Chang'an was the president of the Alchemy Union. His soul force had reached the peak of peak grade 9. He was only half a step away from becoming a grade 10 Pill Emperor. Obtaining the demonic lotus flame was like adding wings to a tiger. In order to prevent Jin Chilong from doing anything desperate to deal with Ningyu, Meng Chang'an decided to let Ningyu leave first to join forces with Sunfeng and Chang Tian. Be careful. Ningyu was not the kind of person who was unreasonable. He took a deep look at Meng Chang'an before moving towards Sunfeng's battlefield. Meng Chang'an, I'll let you know how powerful I am today. Next year, today will be the day you die. Ningyu had just retreated when Jin Chilong roared and rushed out. There must be something fishy about this. Meng Chang'an frowned as he looked at Jin Chilong, who was rushing towards him. He felt that something was amiss. When the demonic lotus flame was in Ningyu's hands, Jin Chilong didn't dare to fight with Ningyu. But now that the demonic lotus flame was in his hands, Jin Chilong actually dared to attack him. This matter didn't seem right no matter how he looked at it. Meng Chang'an decided not to use the demonic lotus flame for now. He wanted to use his own strength to fight with Jin Chilong first. Rumble. Even though Meng Chang'an didn't use the demonic lotus flame, his battle prowess was still terrifying. A terrifying palm imprint separated from Meng Chang'an's hand and ruthlessly flew towards Jin Chilong. Jin Chilong was clearly disappointed that Meng Chang'an didn't use the demonic lotus flame. However, Jin Chilong didn't dare to block recklessly. He still used his full strength. Similarly, a terrifying palm imprint swept out from Jin Chilong's hand and collided with Meng Chang'an's palm imprint. Catcher. When the two palm imprints collided, a crisp sound rang out in the void. Jin Chilong and Meng Chang'an's attacks directly tore a hole in the void. Prepare yourselves. When Meng Chang'an and I exchange 3 moves, you must make your move. On the surface, Jin Chilong was fighting with Meng Chang'an, but in reality, he was secretly contacting the 3 bullies. 2 bullies were fighting fiercely with Zhao Hang, and 1 was fighting fiercely with Ning Yu. Jin Chilong was confident that as long as he joined hands with the 3 bullies to attack at the same time, even if they couldn't kill Meng Chang'an in 1 move, they would definitely be able to heavily injure him. As for Zhao Hang and Ning Yu, they could be ignored for the time being. Once they could get rid of Meng Chang'an, Zhao Hang and Ning Yu would definitely choose to escape. What he needed to do was to join forces with the 3 bullies and capture Ning Yu and Zhao Hang in one fell swoop while they were on the run. It had to be said that Jin Chilong's ideal was very rich. Little did they know that there was always a huge gap between ideals and reality. Poochie. In the second exchange, Meng Chang'an actually used the demonic lotus flame. Due to Meng Chang'an's sudden strength, Jin Chilong was careless and was hit in the chest by the demonic lotus flame controlled by Meng Chang'an. Luckily, Jin Chilong reacted in time and hurriedly chopped off a piece of skin on his chest. Otherwise, Jin Chilong's chest injury would probably be even more serious. Even so, Jin Chilong also couldn't help but spit out a big mouthful of fresh blood. His face became deathly pale and his breathing rapidly dropped. Damn it! Jin Chilong cursed in his heart. His entire person looked very angry. Originally, in Jin Chilong's plan, he and the 3 bullies would attack together to kill Meng Chang'an during the 3rd move. But now that he suffered heavy injuries in the 2nd move, it directly caused the power of the 3rd move to be greatly reduced. Jin Chilong even wanted to cancel the plan and let the 3 bullies deal with Meng Chang'an while he chose to escape. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. However, before Jin Chilong could escape in time, the 3 bullies forced back their opponents and rushed towards Meng Chang'an. The sudden attack from the 3 bullies left Jin Chilong with no other choice. He could only brace himself and face it head-on. Let you all witness the prowess of an alchemist. Looking at the 4 figures rushing towards him unceasingly, not only was Meng Chang'an not afraid, but the corners of his mouth curled up and he said coldly, "Kill." Following the word "kill" from Meng Chang'an's mouth, a horrifying wave of essence chi emerged from his sea of consciousness. What emerged together with the essence chi was Meng Chang'an's peak rank 9 soul force. Meng Chang'an's soul force strength had long reached peak rank 9 and was only half a step away from rank 10. Kai. Soul force and essence chi intertwined and instantly arrived at Meng Chang'an's wrist. Meng Chang'an's wrist shook and controlled the soul force and essence chi to enter the demonic lotus flame. When the essence chi and soul force just entered the demonic lotus flame, the demonic lotus flame gave off sizzling sounds. Rumble. Moreover, the demonic lotus flame suddenly became bigger. In a short time, it directly expanded several times. The expanded demonic lotus flame practically enveloped Jin Chilong and the 3 bullies inside. So terrifying. From afar, Zhao Hang saw the demonic lotus flame become so terrifying in Meng Chang'an's hands, and his face faintly turned solemn. Although Zhao Hang was very confident in his own strength, seeing the strength that Meng Chang'an displayed at this moment, his confidence was slightly shaken for the first time. Zhao Hang knew that even if his strength recovered to peak condition, it was almost impossible to beat the current Meng Chang'an. An alchemist using the mystic flame to battle, the battle strength was really too terrifying. The strength of his soul force should be similar to my previous life. Ning Yu did not doubt the terror of the demonic lotus flame, nor did he doubt that Meng Chang'an could use the demonic lotus flame to display such powerful battle strength. This was because on the mystic flame list, the higher the rank, the stronger the power. If he could find the number 1 flame on the mystic flame list, Ning Yu was confident that he could rely on just this flame to fight against a peak sage martial artist. Of course, the prerequisite was that his soul force strength had recovered to the same level as in his previous life, breaking through the core and becoming a martial emperor realm. If his soul force was insufficient, even if he had the number 1 flame on the mystic flame list, his battle strength would not increase too much. Bang! 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 This battle, in fact, had already ended when Meng Chang'an obtained the control of the demonic lotus flame. 4 consecutive crisp sounds rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that Jin Chilong and the 3 bullies had all fallen to the ground, falling flat on their faces. Retreat. Jin Chilong was worthy of being the leader of the Jin family. He knew that if he stayed, only death would be waiting for him. So as soon as he fell to the ground, he suddenly tore the void and drilled into it. As the saying goes, where there is life, there is hope. At this moment, Jin Chilong was very unwilling to use his trump card, drilled into the void and disappeared. Where are you going? Seeing that Jin Chilong drilled into the void, Meng Chang'an held the demonic lotus flame in his hand and his figure swept, wanting to chase after him. There is no need to chase after him. It is impossible for him to leave Wu Hung Cave. Chapter 1844. This concerns whether we can leave this place alive. Meng Chang'an originally wanted to chase after Jin Chilong, but when he heard Zhao Hang's words, he immediately stopped. He was slightly puzzled and asked with a frown, "What do you mean? Since ancient times, one can only enter the Wu Hung Cave, but not leave." Zhao Hang explained, "It's not that easy for us to leave. Didn't you say that we can leave the Wu Hung Cave by capturing the unicorn monster?" Ningyu was confused. Zhao Hang had said that to leave the Wu Hung Cave, they had to capture the unicorn monster first. Ningyu had thought that they could leave the Wu Hung Cave easily after capturing the unicorn monster. But it seemed that things were not as simple as they seemed. The unicorn monster has the key to open the Wu Hung Cave, but there is an array at the exit of the Wu Hung Cave. We need to break through that array to get out. Zhao Hang's expression was solemn. If I'm not wrong, there is a high possibility of a sage grand perfection in that array. An illusory demonic beast of the full cultivation realm. What? Zhao Hang's words made everyone's expression change. Due to the restrictions of the immortal spirit realm, the strongest in the immortal spirit realm could only be a peak sage. In other words, it was difficult to find someone in the entire immortal spirit realm who could fight against a sage grand perfection realm demonic beast. Who wouldn't be shocked under such circumstances? Don't worry. Although that illusory demonic beast is a sage grand perfection realm cultivator, its actual battle strength is only slightly stronger than a peak sage. Zhao Hang waved his hand. If we join forces, we might be able to defeat that illusory demonic beast. Now that things have come to this, we can only. Meng Chang'an's expression was extremely solemn as he took a deep breath. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. But before Meng Chang'an could finish his words, the 3 bullies hurriedly tore through the void and dashed towards the entrance of the Wu Hung Cave. When Jin Chilong was escaping, the 3 bullies were all lying on the ground, pretending to be on their last breath, thus avoiding everyone's attention. While Meng Chang'an and the rest were distracted by Zhao Hang's words, the 3 bullies decisively tore through the void and dashed in. Where are you going? Seeing the 3 bullies escape, Meng Chang'an's expression turned cold as he threw out the demonic lotus flame. Kai Kai. The speed of the demonic lotus flame was very fast. Almost in an instant, it exploded on the back of a bully. The temperature of the demonic lotus flame was terrifyingly high. Almost in an instant, the clothes on the tyrant's back were burnt to a crisp, and even a large piece of his skin was burnt off. Old Third. When the other 2 bullies saw the bully who was entangled by the demonic lotus flame, their expressions changed and they slowed down. Swoosh. It was obvious that the other 2 bullies had only slowed down for a short moment. They were very clear that the bullies who were entangled by the demonic lotus flames definitely had no way to survive. Rather than staying and fighting, it was better to retreat first and wait for an opportunity. Poochie. Meng Chang'an did not chase after the other 2 bullies. Instead, he controlled the demonic lotus flame and focused on dealing with this bully. Every once in a while, the tyrant who was entangled by the demonic lotus flames would spit out a large mouthful of blood. He looked like he was on the verge of death. Leave him alive and hand him over to Ninglu. Seeing that Meng Chang'an was about to control the demonic lotus flame to kill the bully, Ningyu hurriedly shouted. Ninglu needed to constantly devour energy to slow down the leakage of his vital energy. A warrior who was a peak sage in the outside world could probably prevent Ninglu's vital energy from leaking for a few days. No problem. Meng Chang'an did not ask Ningyu for the reason. With a thought, he controlled the demonic lotus flame to withdraw from the bully's body and threw the bully and the demonic lotus flame out. The bully was thrown at Ninglu. As for the demonic lotus flame, it was thrown at Ningyu. Many thanks. Ningyu raised his right hand slightly and controlled the demonic lotus flame to dance on his wrist. Pa. Ningyu did not stand on ceremony. He waved both his hands and stuck to the bully's back, beginning his frenzied devouring journey. You guys recuperate first. I'll go rescue the few of them. Zhao Hang waved his hand at Ningyu and the rest. His figure flashed and appeared in front of Elder Tianji and the rest. Essence Qi pulsed on his wrist as Zhao Hang suddenly punched out. Rumble. The attack power of Zhao Hang's punch had reached a terrifying level. The protective shield formed by the 4 flags, under the bombardment of Zhao Hang's punch, actually showed signs of cracking. Elder Tianji and the rest, who were in the center of the flags, all showed a look of disbelief. It should be known that even if all of them joined forces, they would not have the confidence to blast open the protective shield. But Zhao Hang's punch actually caused the protective shield to loosen. Could it be that outside the Wu Heng cave, his cultivation exceeded the sage realm? Elder Tianji and Yun Mu had the same thought in their minds at the same time. In the Wu Heng cave, everyone's cultivation was suppressed. This was something that everyone knew. Unless they were peerless geniuses, otherwise, everyone's cultivation would be suppressed by a large level. What's more, their cultivation would be suppressed to below the Sky Supreme stage. If Zhao Hang's cultivation outside the Wu Heng cave was also at the Sage Intermediate stage, then Elder Tianji and the rest would probably have to look at him in a different light. Crack, 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 crack. At this moment, 4 consecutive crisp cracking sounds rang out. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Immediately after, 4 flags flew out at the same time, flying in all directions. And the flying of the flags meant that the protective shield that trapped Elder Tianji and the rest had completely collapsed. Little Chelin, Elder Tianji, Ziyun, Yun Mu, Jiyu Yang, and Haoping, the Talisman Supremacy, and Zhongqiong all revealed expressions of relief at the same time. When they were trapped in the 4 flags, they had already lost all hope. Now that they had broken out, they felt that it was unreal. Ningyu, who exactly is this friend of yours? Before they could express their thanks, Meng Chang'an exclaimed on the other side. Meng Chang'an's face was full of confusion. As the president of the Alchemy Union, he was considered a reputable figure in the celestial spirit realm. Other than some old monsters who did not show their faces, Meng Chang'an's strength could be ranked in the top few. But it was this person with such high status and great strength who revealed a confused expression at this moment. He's a little special. Ningyu knew why Meng Chang'an was surprised. He hurriedly explained, he once absorbed the blood essence of a heaven-devouring dog. Ningyu was not stupid. He would not tell Meng Chang'an about Ninglu's identity. Ningyu could not guarantee that Meng Chang'an would not be tempted by a cultivator formed by the world tree. No wonder. Meng Chang'an had a doubtful expression. Meng Chang'an had a deep understanding of the heaven-devouring dog. The speed at which Ninglu devoured the tyrant was something that even some mature heaven-devouring dogs could not achieve. But since Ningyu was unwilling to reveal Ninglu's identity, Meng Chang'an was too embarrassed to ask. After some thought, Meng Chang'an took out a few elixirs and said, I see that your friend urgently needs elixirs to replenish his energy. I have a few elixirs here that can be used by him. Chapter 1845. Swoosh. Looking at the elixirs flying towards him, Ninglu appeared very calm. He raised his right hand slightly and forced the elixirs to stop in front of him. After devouring Tyrant, Ninglu was no longer that weak person. It could be said that Ninglu's current combat power was basically equivalent to Ningyu's. It was just that as time passed, his strength would decrease exponentially. Grabbing a few elixirs and randomly throwing them into his mouth, Ninglu said to Meng Chang'an, Thank you for your elixirs. Ninglu's action made the corner of the man's mouth twitch slightly. Although the energy contained in these elixirs was slightly weaker than the energy contained in Tyrant's body. But Ninglu throwing so many elixirs into his mouth at once still made Meng Changan slightly shocked. Ningyu, release the one-horned monster. Zhao Hang didn't have the time to care about Ningyu swallowing elixirs. He said to Ningyu, we need to get the key to open the Wu Hung cave from him. Whoosh. With a thought, Ningyu took out the heavenly fire elixir cauldron, opened the lid of the cauldron, and poured out the one-horned monster. What the F***CK? Seeing Ningyu take out the pill furnace, Meng Changan directly cursed. If Ningyu's possession of the demonic lotus flame had shocked Meng Changan, then seeing Ningyu's heavenly fire pill furnace, Meng Changan's shock could no longer be expressed in words. The demonic lotus flame was ranked 5th on the mystic flame list, while the heavenly fire pill furnace was ranked 3rd on the pill furnace list. Who exactly was Ningyu? Why did he have the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire pill furnace, two things that alchemists could only dream of when he was only at the pinnacle of Sky Supreme? Meng Changan couldn't understand it no matter how hard he tried. One-horned monster, I'll give you a chance to live. Zhao Hang didn't care about Meng Changan's shocked expression. To Zhao Hang, getting the key to open the Wu Hung cave from the one-horned monster was the most important thing now. Bah! Kill me and you all can forget about leaving the Wu Hung cave forever. The single-horned monster seemed to have guessed what Zhao Hang wanted to do. He directly spat out a mouthful of saliva and said coldly, if you're sensible, then release me as soon as possible. Perhaps if I'm happy, I'll open the everlasting cave and let you out. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit, Zhao Hang's face turned cold as he leaped up. Shio! In the blink of an eye, Zhao Hang arrived in front of the one-horned monster. His foot brought along a violent yuan qi gale as it ruthlessly smashed towards the one-horned monster's chest. Zhao Hang's kick was extremely powerful. If the one-horned monster was hit, it would be crippled even if it didn't die. The corner of the one-horned monster's mouth curled up, but it didn't even blink. Because the horned monster knew very well that Zhao Hang would absolutely not dare to kill it, and it was even to the extent that Zhao Hang wouldn't dare to heavily injure it. Catcher, catcher, catcher. However, the development of things was always so strange. This time, the single-horned monster's judgment was wrong. Zhao Hang exerted force with his right leg and kicked him hard in the chest. A crisp sound rang out. Without a doubt, Zhao Hang did not hold back in this kick at all. Consecutive tree roots and ribs broke, causing the one-horned monster to collapse to the ground on the spot, his entire body a little broken. You, the one-horned monster forcefully endured the intense pain coming from his chest, pointed a finger at Zhao Hang, and said fiercely, don't you regret it? I won't regret it, because I know where the key to open the Wu Hung cave is. I'll go get it now. Zhao Hang shrugged as if he didn't care at all. Impossible. The key to open the Wu Hung cave is with me. The one-horned monster yelled. However, the one-horned monster's cry was only halfway through when it abruptly stopped. Because the one-horned monster noticed that the corners of Zhao Hang's mouth curled up, and he was looking at him playfully. Looks like you're not very smart either. Following this sentence, Zhao Hang directly swept out and blasted out another punch. The power of this punch was even more terrifying than the kick earlier. Run. Facing Zhao Hang's attack, the one-horned monster only had one thought in its mind, and that was to escape. However, it was obviously too late for the one-horned monster to think of escaping at this time. Zhao Hang's speed was very fast, almost in the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the one-horned monster, and his fist fiercely blasted on the one-horned monster's heart. Bang! The flesh hit the ground, giving off a crisp sound. You will regret it. Before dying, the one-horned monster raised its right hand, pointing at Zhao Hang. The instant the voice fell, the one-horned monster breathed its last, dying on the spot. Ningyu, use your demonic lotus flame to burn the one-horned monster. Zhao Hang looked at Ningyu and said. Burn? Ningyu was slightly stunned, a little confused. Zhao Hang said before that the one-horned monster was the key to opening the Wu Hung cave, and he had to find the key from him. But now, he did not find the key, but killed the one-horned monster. How could Ningyu not be surprised? However, although he was surprised, Ningyu's hands were not idle. With a thought, he controlled the demonic lotus flame to fly toward the one-horned monster. Chi. The temperature of the demonic lotus flame was extremely high. It only used a short few seconds to burn the one-horned monster until nothing was left. Key. After burning the one-horned monster, Ningyu looked at the golden key lying flat on the ground and asked in puzzlement, "Zhao Hang, is this key the key to open the Wu Heng cave?" "That's right, let's go now." Zhao Hang's eyes revealed an excited look. He grabbed the key, then his figure swept, flying towards the Wu Heng cave's exit. After Zhao Hang left, Ningyu and Meng Chang'an they all did not idle either, but followed closely behind Zhao Hang. At the same time, at the Wu Heng cave's exit, 3 martial artists were currently confronting each other. 2 of them were bullies, and the other was Jin Chilong. The 2 bullies were called Ren Tong and Hu Shui. The current Ren Tong and Hu Shui could be said to be angered until their noses were crooked. They already knew that their third brother was killed, and the cause of the matter was precisely because of this Jin Chilong in front of them. "Jin Chilong, we'll give you the last 3 minutes. If you can't open the Wu Heng cave after 3 minutes, we'll have to make a move." Ren Tong's expression was gloomy as he berated. "You guys rest assured. 3 minutes later, I'll definitely be able to open the Wu Heng cave." Jin Chilong wiped the sweat on his forehead and said hurriedly. Jin Chilong originally thought that he could leave the Wu Heng cave in advance. Who would have thought that after he busied himself here for a period of time, he did not even have a clue. And just at this time, the 2 bullies, Ren Tong and Hu Shui, suddenly rushed over. If not for Jin Chilong being quick-witted and saying that he had a way to open the Wu Heng cave, most likely Ren Tong and Hu Shui would have long made a move on him. Even so, Ren Tong and Hu Shui were extremely furious too. One could imagine that if he could not open the Wu Heng cave within 3 minutes, Ren Tong and Hu Shui would absolutely not let him off. Chapter 1846. This time, we really went for wool and came home shorn. We suffered a double loss. Jin Chilong was extremely flustered. The current situation was extremely disadvantageous to him. Forget about 3 minutes, even if he was given 10 minutes, 100 minutes, he would not be able to open the everlasting cave. Jin Chilong rolled his eyes, trying to think of a countermeasure. Once the 3 minutes were up, Ren Tong and Hu Shui would attack him. What he needed to do was to recuperate as much as possible within these 3 minutes. Then, taking advantage of Ren Tong and Hu Shui's carelessness, he made his move in advance. As long as he could kill or severely injure Ren Tong and Hu Shui, his life would be saved. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. 3 minutes passed very quickly in Jin Chilong's eyes. "Jin Chilong, what about opening the Wu Heng cave?" As expected, once the 3 minutes were up, Ren Tong and Hu Shui questioned him at the same time. "Look over here." Jin Chilong revealed a confident expression and pointed behind Ren Tong and Hu Shui. "Actually, I've already opened the Wu Heng cave." "The Wu Heng cave has already been opened by you?" Ren Tong and Hu Shui were both stunned. No matter how they looked at it, the Wu Heng cave was in a completely sealed state. How could it possibly be opened by Jin Chilong? "Let me demonstrate for you." Jin Chilong rolled his eyes. Soon after, he moved his feet and walked towards the direction he had pointed. Ren Tong and Hu Shui crossed their arms in front of their chests. They wanted to see how Jin Chilong would open the everlasting cave. "Look carefully. Don't blink." When he arrived in front of Ying Hui and Hu Shui, Jin Chilong paused for a moment, twisted his neck and said, "Whoosh, whoosh." The moment his voice fell, Jin Chilong used both his hands and feet. He clenched his right fist and punched at Ren Tong. He lifted his right leg and kicked towards Hu Shui. Not good. Jin Chilong's sudden outburst caused Ren Tong and Hu Shui's expressions to change drastically. To be honest, if it was any other time, they would definitely not be so careless. The main thing was that they wanted to leave the Wu Heng cave in advance, so they gave Jin Chilong the opportunity to take advantage of. In a panic, Ren Tong and Hu Shui launched a counterattack at the same time. Bang! Bang! Jin Chilong's attack had practically used all of his trump cards. He did not hold back at all. Even though Ren Tong and Hu Shui fought back, it was to no avail. Under Jin Chilong's powerful attack, The two of them retreated at the same time and fell heavily to the ground. You will die a horrible death. Ren Tong looked at Jin Chilong angrily and even stuttered. I don't know if I will die a horrible death, but I know that the two of you will die a horrible death right now. Hit the snake where it hurts, don't hold back. Jin Chilong understood this principle. He chased after him and threw out 2 more punches. One punch landed on Ren Tong's head, and the other on Hu Shui's head. Ren Tong and Hu Shui, who were already heavily injured in the first place, did not manage to hold on and died on the spot. Thank you for your help. Jin Chilong hurriedly moved and grabbed Ren Tong and Hu Shui. First, he separated 2 strands of soul force and injected them into their bodies. Then, he threw the 2 of them at the exit of the Wu Hung cave. Jin Chilong's figure flickered as he retreated. Only after retreating far away did Jin Chilong control the soul force left in Ren Tong and the other 2's bodies, causing them to explode. Rumble. Although Ren Tong and Hu Shui were already dead and their cultivation had been suppressed to the peak of the heavenly supreme realm, the power of their explosion was still very powerful. A terrifying explosion sounded, and then the entire Wu Hung cave was on the verge of collapse. Is it open? Jin Chilong's eyes were fixed on the barrier at the exit of the Wu Hung cave, and his eyes were full of hope. This might be Jin Chilong's last hope. If he could break the barrier, he could leave and make a comeback. If he couldn't break the barrier, he could only be trapped in the Wu Hung cave. Crack. Then, a cracking sound rang out. Hearing this crisp cracking sound, Jin Chilong's face was full of excitement. At the same time, Jin Chilong's tense nerves eased a little. Because Jin Chilong knew that the Wu Hung cave had been broken, and he could leave. Ningyu, Meng Chang'an, we'll meet again someday. With a cold look in his eyes, Jin Chilong immediately moved his feet and flew out of the Wu Hung cave. Rumble. However, just when Jin Chilong flew out of the Wu Hung cave, his pupils shrank and he looked a little dumbfounded. The reason why Jin Chilong had such an expression was because he discovered that there was another array outside the Wu Hung cave. If it was just an array, Jin Chilong wouldn't be so dumbfounded. Most importantly, there was a horse-headed, human-bodied demonic beast in the array. There were 5 horns on the head of this demonic beast. Its cultivation had reached the terrifying pinnacle saint realm. No, the perfected saint realm. Sensing the aura of the 5-horned demonic beast, Jin Chilong's heart sank to the bottom. Right now, his cultivation was only at the pinnacle heavenly supreme realm, so how could he deal with a perfected saint realm demonic beast? Roar. Just when Jin Chilong was dumbfounded, the 5-horned demonic beast roared at the sky and slapped Jin Chilong. Initially, the 5-horned demonic beast's palm was small, but as it moved forward, it grew bigger and bigger. In the end, the slap enveloped Jin Chilong, leaving him with nowhere to escape. The huge slap ruthlessly slammed down. Jin Chilong raised his hands slightly, trying to use them to resist this terrifying impact. Crack, crack. It was a pity. Both of Jin Chilong's arms were broken, but he couldn't stop the huge slap. Because the force was too great, only Jin Chilong's head was left on the ground, and the rest of his body was squeezed into the ground. Roar. Succeeding in its attack, the 5-horned demonic beast roared again and raised its palm, about to slap down again. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, countless figures shot out from the Wu Hung cave. Seeing the sudden appearance of several figures, the 5-horned demonic beast paused for a moment and retracted its palm. The 5-horned demonic beast retracted its palm, and Jin Chilong naturally escaped. It's you guys. Jin Chilong looked at the figures that suddenly appeared, and the hope that had just risen in his heart was extinguished once again. If he fell into the hands of the 5-horned demonic beast, he would be smashed into a meat patty. If he fell into the hands of Ningyu, he would be sucked dry, at the very least. Compared to human jerky, Jin Chilong preferred meat patty. Thank you so much. Ningyu looked at Jin Chilong, who only had a head left, and couldn't help thanking him. When they were in the Wu Hung cave, Zhao Hang had already discussed the plan. They would first work together to break the Wu Hung cave, and this level might consume a lot of energy. Next, they would use the golden key to break the restriction of the Wu Hung cave, so that their cultivation would recover to its peak. The last level was to deal with the five-horned demonic beast. Now that the first level had been broken by Jin Chilong, it saved them a lot of trouble. Chapter 1847. Phut. Kill me or torture me, do as you wish. Jin Chilong spat with all his strength and said coldly, even if you kill one Jin Chilong, the Jin clan still has millions and millions of Jin Chilong. You've offended the Jin clan, so you're doomed. You don't have to worry about that. Ningyu shrugged and turned to Ninglu. I'll leave Jin Chilong to you. Devour him, and you should be able to last a few more days. Whoosh. Ninglu wasn't going to be courteous with Ningyu. His figure flickered as he charged towards Jin Chilong. I'm the representative of the Jin clan in the celestial spirit stage. If you kill me, the Jin clan will send even more powerful cultivators. You can't kill. Jin Chilong finally revealed a terrified expression when he saw Ninglu approaching him. Crack. How could Ninglu be affected by Jin Chilong? He stretched out his right hand and placed it on Jin Chilong's head as he started devouring him. Not long after, Jin Chilong was devoured into a dried corpse. As for Ninglu, he had recovered to his peak state, and his battle prowess had already surpassed Ningyu. However, even if Ninglu's cultivation was stronger than him, Ningyu wouldn't allow him to make a move. Go. He threw the golden key in his hand into the eye of the formation. Whoosh. When the golden key was thrown into the array core, Ningyu and the rest felt a formless aura being sucked into the key. Thereafter, the cultivation of Meng Chang'an, Ziyun, Jiyu Yang and the rest instantly rose, recovering to their peak state. Everyone, let's attack together. Only by defeating this five-horned demonic beast can we leave. Seeing that everyone had recovered their cultivation, Zhao Hang said with a grave expression, don't kill the five-horned demonic beast, just force it into the everlasting cave. Rustle. As soon as Zhao Hang's voice fell, everyone moved in unison and attacked one after another. Among them, Zhao Hang, Meng Chang'an, and the little Chelin were the main force, in charge of restraining the five-horned demonic beast. Ziyun, Jiyu Yang, and An Haoping were on par with each other in terms of strength, so they were in charge of finding opportunities to launch sneak attacks. As for Zhong Qiong, Sun Feng, Chang Tian, and the others, they were waiting for an opportunity to act. They would rush over to help whichever side revealed an opening. As for Yun Mu, the Talisman Martial Highness, and the others, they did not make a move. They simply backed away from the battlefield. The five-horned monster's cultivation was at the Sage Peak stage. Although its battle prowess was not at the Sage Peak stage, it had surpassed the Sage Peak stage. Martial artists below the Sage realm would not be able to help much when fighting against a demonic beast of this level. At first, Ningyu also wanted to make a move, but he suddenly changed his mind. Now was not the best time to make a move. Besides, it wouldn't make a difference whether he was there or not. Just now, Ningyu suddenly discovered that several auras were faintly discernible in his surroundings. In other words, someone was quietly squatting around the Wu Hung cave, wanting to make a mantis stalking the cicada unaware of the aureole behind. I hope you have some self-awareness. Ningyu's face was solemn. He looked around and murmured. Rumble. Half of Ningyu's attention was on the outside, while the other half was on the battlefield. On the battlefield, Zhao Hang and the others were already engaged in an intense battle with the five-horned monster. Although the five-horned monster was an illusion, its battle prowess was abnormally strong. Zhao Hang, Meng Chang'an, the little Chelin, Ziyun, and An Haoping's battle prowess could kill an ordinary Sage Peak stage martialist in 3 minutes at most. Now that they had joined forces to deal with the five-horned monster, they did not have the upper hand at all. Instead, they were at a slight disadvantage. This situation really surprised Ningyu. President Meng, I'll lend you the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron. With a thought, Ningyu took out the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron and threw them to Meng Chang'an. Roar. The five-horned monster's attention seemed to be attracted by the heavenly fire cauldron and the demonic lotus flame. It roared at the sky and opened its mouth, wanting to swallow the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron. This is a good chance. Ningyu did not expect things to turn out this way. He was slightly startled at first, then his face lit up with joy. He hurriedly controlled the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron to fly towards the five-horned monster. Since you want them, I'll give them to you. Swish. Swish. The heavenly fire cauldron and the demonic lotus flame streaked across the sky and entered the five-horned monster's mouth under everyone's shocked gazes. Roar. 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 The five-horned monster regretted swallowing the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron. It was an illusory monster and not a real body. The demonic lotus flame had a fatal restraining effect on such illusory things. The energy in its body was rapidly flowing away, and the five-horned monster's strength was declining at a terrifying speed. After roaring a few times, the five-horned monster spat out the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron. However, how could Ningyu give it this chance? Even if he had to suffer serious injuries, Ningyu wanted to keep the demonic lotus flame in the five-horned monster's body. Even if it stayed for a second longer, the five-horned monster's strength would decline. The decline of the five-horned monster's strength was extremely beneficial to Zhao Hang and the rest. In the beginning, they were at a complete disadvantage in the battle with the five-horned monster. However, gradually, they were able to resist it. As time passed, they actually gained the upper hand. The scales of victory were constantly tilting towards Zhao Hang and the rest. Die. The five-horned monster knew that it was unable to spit out the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron. It raised its right hand and ruthlessly slapped the owner of the demonic lotus flame, Ningyu. Damn it. Looking at the huge palm that was coming towards him, Ningyu knew that he could not hold on any longer. Cursing inwardly, Ningyu's mind surged as he controlled the demonic lotus flame and the heavenly fire cauldron to fly out. The heavenly fire cauldron and the demonic lotus flame that flew out naturally landed in Meng Chang'an's hands. With the heavenly fire cauldron in his left hand and the demonic lotus flame in his right, Meng Chang'an looked like a god of war. You guys help me stall for a few minutes. I want to kill it completely. Meng Chang'an's eyes were solemn as he said in a deep voice. No, we can only force it into the Wu Heng cave. We can't kill it. Hearing that Meng Chang'an wanted to kill the five-horned monster, Zhao Hang immediately said, this array has a special characteristic. After killing a five-horned monster, two more will appear. What? Meng Chang'an's expression changed slightly. If it was really as Zhao Hang said, then he was lucky that he did not make a move. Otherwise, if two five-horned monsters appeared, all of them would die. Quickly force the five-horned monster into the Wu Heng cave. Zhao Hang's gaze was fixed on the five-horned demon beast. When he felt an invisible energy enter the body of the five-horned demon beast, he immediately shouted, if we're a step late, the five-horned demon beast's strength will recover to its peak state. Boom. However, just as Zhao Hang finished speaking, the entire Wu Heng cave shook violently. Chapter 1848. What's going on? The sudden explosion made the faces of Ningyu and the rest change drastically. Especially Zhao Hang, his pupils constricted, hurriedly wanting to determine what happened. The explosion sound came from the depths of the Wu Heng cave, which was also to say that something unforeseen happened inside the Wu Heng cave. If it was just an ordinary explosion sound, Zhao Hang would not be so anxious. One had to know, not long ago, so many of them were fighting fiercely inside the Wu Heng cave, but it could not make the Wu Heng cave sway in the slightest. Now, an explosion sound actually made the entire Wu Heng cave sway. This kind of situation, how could Zhao Hang possibly not be surprised? In fact, Zhao Hang suspected that the blue-clothed martial artist they all came back. The more Zhao Hang thought, the more he felt that this was possible. Sucking in a deep breath, Zhao Hang said in a solemn voice, ignore the explosion sound inside the Wu Heng cave first. The urgent matter is to force the five-horned demonic beast into the Wu Heng cave. Rumble. Things always developed in an unpredictable direction. The words in Zhao Hang's mouth had just faded when there was another explosion sound coming from inside the Wu Heng cave. Compared to the previous explosion sound, this explosion sound was louder and more powerful. Quickly go, the Wu Heng cave is going to collapse. Ningyu's attention was initially placed on the five-horned demonic beast. But following the sound of the explosion inside the Wu Heng cave, his attention gradually shifted to the Wu Heng cave. When the second explosion sounded out, Ningyu realized the seriousness of the problem. He made a prompt decision and chose to retreat. Although he could not leave the array formation, staying far away from the Wuheng cave was still not a big problem. Furthermore, the explosion sounds coming from inside the Wuheng cave became more and more obvious, more and more terrifying. Now, even a fool could roughly guess that the Wuheng cave was going to be destroyed. Retreat. When Zhao Hang they all heard Ningyu's cry, they immediately gave up attacking the five-horned demonic beast and turned to sprint outside. Swoosh. When everyone chose to escape, the five-horned demonic beast actually did not retreat but advanced, speeding straight towards the Wuheng cave. Damn it, it must be the blue-clothed martial artist coming back. Seeing the five-horned demonic beast choose to enter the Wuheng cave at this time, Zhao Hang guessed the crux of the problem in practically an instant. The Wuheng cave had a rule. Only when it was a matter of life and death would the five-horned demonic beasts in the formation be used. Now that the five-horned demon beast had entered the Wuheng cave, it was obvious that the Wuheng cave of the immortal spirit realm had reached a moment of life and death. Capture. The violent shaking of the Wuheng cave had a huge impact on the array formation at the exit. Just as Ningyu and the others arrived at the edge of the array formation broke with a loud crack. When the formation was broken, Ningyu and the others were overjoyed and retreated into the distance. Rumble. However, Ningyu and the others hadn't retreated far when the everlasting cave exploded with a bang. The explosion this time caused the entire Wuheng cave to be completely caved in. What? Originally, Ningyu should have been happy that Wuheng cave had collapsed. After all, now that Wuheng cave had collapsed, he would not have to worry about the blue-clad cultivators and the others chasing after him. But when an extremely familiar aura was detected by Ningyu, Ningyu's eyes instantly widened, his face full of surprise. There was no other reason. This aura was very familiar to Ningyu. It was none other than the human devil. Why would the human devil be inside the Wuheng cave? Ningyu felt very puzzled. Meng Chang'an said before that the human devil was very likely to be hiding inside the Wuheng cave, but Ningyu did not believe it. But the things that happened now made Ningyu have no choice but to believe a fact. The human devil was indeed inside the Wuheng cave. Ningyu, what are you waiting for? Let's hurry to Pill Emperor City. Meng Chang'an saw that Ningyu was slightly dazed and hurriedly touched Ningyu's shoulder, saying anxiously, "Don't bother about the matters of the Wuheng cave. Because of the existence of the plane barrier, even if those people leave the Wuheng cave, they can at most only exert peak sage combat power. Our top priority is to return to Pill Emperor City in advance. As for other matters, it has nothing to do with us for the time being." Ningyu knew. Actually, according to the current situation, leaving this place and returning to Pill Emperor City was the most correct choice. But, when Ningyu learned that the martial artist fighting inside the Wuheng cave was the human devil, how could he possibly leave? Sucking in a deep breath, Ningyu said, "I'll have to trouble you to bring them away first. That person inside the Wuheng cave is my friend. I must stay behind." "Your friend?" Meng Chang'an was taken aback, looking at Ningyu doubtfully, not quite understanding. "Human devil," Ningyu said solemnly. "Sun Feng, Chang Tian, you guys bring Ningyu's friends back first. I'll stay with Ningyu." Hearing Ningyu's words, Meng Chang'an practically said without thinking, "Even if the two of you risk your old lives, you have to protect everyone well." Understood. Sun Feng and Chang Tian exchanged glances, both seeing some solemnity from the other party's eyes. Sun Feng and Chang Tian were not fools. The two of their strengths were not as powerful as the little Chelin and Zhao Hang they all. Since Meng Chang'an entrusted the little Chelin and the rest to him, there was only one objective: to let them ensure the little Chelin and the rest's safety in Pill Emperor City. After all, Gong Yangqing was in Pill Emperor City, and if the little Chelin and the rest went to Pill Emperor City, they would definitely clash with Gong Yangqing. At this time, their usefulness should be manifested. Meng Chang'an had managed Pill Emperor City for many years. His influence in Pill Emperor City was not weak. As long as the two of them integrated their forces, then Gong Yangqing would also weigh it properly. "What are you guys staying behind for?" Seeing that Ning Yu and Meng Chang'an insisted on staying behind, Zhao Hang was slightly puzzled. The current situation, no matter how he looked at it, they should return to Pill Emperor City. My friends are inside the Wu Heng cave, Ning Yu explained. I'll stay behind too. Zhao Hang was slightly startled and immediately said, the rest of you go to Pill Emperor City first. After we rescue your friends, we'll go to Pill Emperor City to meet up with them right away. Zhao Hang was not a fool. His mentality was the same as Bright Mirror. His objective was to snatch Gong Yangqing's source power. Since Ning Yu said that his friends were inside the Wu Heng cave, it showed that his friend's strength was not weak. One had to know, the blue-clothed martial artist had a very high possibility of being inside the Wu Heng cave too. Just relying on his own strength, he definitely could not snatch the source power from Gong Yangqing there. If he added in a friend of Ning Yu's, the success rate would probably be much higher. Hence, Zhao Hang had to stay behind no matter what. One more person, one more portion of strength. If Zhao Hang wanted to stay behind, Ning Yu would not obstruct it. He walked straight to the little Chelin and old man Heavenly Secret side, slightly whispered a few words, then walked to Ninglu's side and said a sentence before withdrawing. In the beginning, the little Chelin and the rest did not want to leave. But hearing Ning Yu's words, they all chose to withdraw one after another, leaving together with Sun Feng and Chang Tian. Crash. Ning Yu's perception power had been paying attention to the surroundings all the while. Only until the little Chelin and the rest completely disappeared from his field of vision did he slightly set his mind at ease. No matter what, the little Chelin and the rest should not be in too much danger to their lives. Chapter 1849. Rumble. Not long after the little Chelin left, another earth-shattering rumble resounded from the Wu Heng cave. Following that, the entire Wu Heng cave completely collapsed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just when the Wu Heng cave collapsed, 3 silhouettes charged out from the Wu Heng cave at a terrifying speed. Human demon. With a single glance, Ning Yu determined that one of the 3 silhouettes was the human demon. The other 2 are the cultivator in blue and the cultivator in white. Zhao Hang and Meng Chang'an's gazes were on the 2 cultivators behind the human demon. The current situation was already very clear. The cultivator in blue and the cultivator in white were working together to capture the human demon. However, the cultivator in blue and the cultivator in white had their cultivation dropped to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. They had yet to reach the perfected Saint Realm. After all, this was the celestial spirit realm. With the existence of the plane barrier, it was reasonable for their cultivation to be suppressed to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. On the other hand, the human demon's cultivation wasn't any weaker than the cultivator in blue and the cultivator in white. Pinnacle of the Saint Realm. The human demon's cultivation had also reached the pinnacle of the Saint Realm. Ning Yu. After coming out of the Wu Heng cave, the human demon's first reaction was to retreat as far as he could. Although he had refined the things that he had taken from Meng Chang'an and his cultivation had recovered to the pinnacle of the Saint Realm, the 2 cultivators that were chasing after him were on par with him. The human demon knew that this wasn't the time to show off. He had to retreat as soon as possible to prevent the cultivator in blue and the cultivator in white from pincer attacking him. However, just as human demon was about to retreat, his eyes suddenly caught sight of Ning Yu not too far away. This discovery came as quite a shock to the human demon. The human demon wasn't shocked because Ning Yu had reached the pinnacle of the heavenly supreme realm, but because this place was dangerous. So why would Ning Yu come here? Meng Chang'an, leave with Ning Yu first. I'll hold the 2 of them back. The human demon didn't think too much. He immediately instructed Meng Chang'an to bring Ning Yu away while he stayed behind. Xiu. As he spoke, the human demon turned around and charged towards the blue-clothed and white-clothed martial artists. Senior human devil, you don't have to worry about me. We're here to take you away. Ning Yu shouted when he saw the human demon turn around and charge at the blue-clothed and white-clothed cultivators. The reason he stayed behind was to ensure Ogre's safety. Now that the human devil had turned around and launched an attack, it was completely inconsistent with his original intention of staying. Without the protection of the Wu Heng cave, we might be able to catch one alive. Zhao Hang's opinion was different from Ning Yu's. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as a strange smile appeared on his face. Then, he stomped on the ground and charged towards the battlefield at a terrifying speed. Seeing Zhao Hang join the battle, Meng Chang'an's mouth opened slightly. He looked at Ning Yu and said, "Zhao Hang's words are not without reason. Launching an attack at this time is the best choice." "I know what you mean." How could Ning Yu not know what Meng Chang'an was thinking? With a flick of his wrist, he tossed the demonic lotus flame out. Meng Chang'an possessing the demonic lotus flame and not possessing it were two completely different levels of combat power. Since the demonic lotus flame was in Ning Yu's hands, he had no way of contending with the blue-clothed martial artist and the rest. Might as well lend the demonic lotus flame to Meng Chang'an for the time being. "Stay here and don't move first." Receiving the demonic lotus flame that Ning Yu tossed out, Meng Chang'an's face lit up and he hurriedly joined the battlefield. Looking at the people fighting fiercely on the battlefield, Ning Yu felt a little puzzled. The Wu Hung cave exploded and the blue-clothed and white-clothed martial artists chased out. All sorts of signs revealed strangeness. Logically speaking, there should still be 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts inside the Wu Hung cave. Why had they not come out until now? Ning Yu did not believe that the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts had all died in battle. Because with the human devil's individual combat power, it was absolutely impossible to face 4 powerhouses of equal strength at the same time. 4-horned demonic beast, 5-horned demonic beast, blue-clothed martial artist, white-clothed martial artist. After the collapse of the Wu Hung cave, the combat power of the 4 should be on the same level. Even if the human devil had seriously injured the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts, it was impossible for him to kill them. And since the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts were not dead, they would definitely come out. Whoosh! As expected. Ning Yu's guess was right. Just as he thought of this, 2 figures suddenly sprang out from the collapsed ruins of the Wu Hung cave. These 2 figures were none other than the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts. However, their current strength was only around the mid-stage sage realm. Ning Yu did not have the slightest fear of the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts at this level of combat power. "You guys deal with the blue-clothed martial artist and white-clothed martial artist. Leave these 2 beasts to me." The corners of Ning Yu's mouth curled up slightly. The Yuan Qi in his sea of consciousness surged as he immediately went forward. Ning Yu's speed was very fast. In almost an instant, he was entangled with the 4-horned and 5-horned demonic beasts. Something's wrong. However, Ning Yu had just started fighting with the 4-horned demonic beasts when his expression changed drastically. He hurriedly executed a powerful attack to force them back. The reason why Ning Yu chose to force them back was not because Ning Yu was no match for them, but because Ning Yu had discovered an extremely familiar aura within the 4-horned demonic beast's body. This aura was very familiar to Ning Yu. It only took him 0.1 seconds to know who it belonged to, Liu Chuanji. The owner of this aura was none other than Liu Chuanji. "Come out. I know you've forcefully possessed him." Ning Yu unsheathed the black dragon sword and said in a solemn tone, "Human martial artist, possessing a demonic beast with a human body and a horse's head. How could you do that? Ha ha ha." The 4-horned demonic beast threw its head back and laughed. Then, it said in a cold tone, "Why do you care who I possess? Do you know how powerful the explosion of the Wu Hung cave was? If I hadn't possessed the 4-horned demonic beast at the critical moment, I'm afraid I would have become a pile of dried corpses by now. Do you think you're my match just because you've possessed the 4-horned demonic beast and controlled the 5-horned demonic beast?" Ning Yu injected Yuan Qi into the black dragon sword as he said indifferently, "Killing you is like slaughtering a dog. Who doesn't know how to brag? Although my cultivation has dropped a lot and I'm seriously injured, killing a pinnacle sky supreme martial artist like you is as easy as killing an ant." The 4-horned demonic beast, "No," Liu Chuanji said fiercely. He had forcefully possessed Liu Chuanji after being seriously injured. The current Liu Chuanji only had 10% to 20% of his peak strength. He had dropped from the pinnacle sage realm to the mid-stage sage realm. Ning Yu might not be able to deal with a pinnacle sage realm martial artist, but he was confident that he could deal with a mid-stage Sage Realm martial artist. Even if the mid-stage Sage five-horned demonic beast was added to the equation, Ningyu was still fearless. The five-horned demonic beast was just an illusory beast. Its existence was completely dependent on the Wu Hung Cave's array formation. Now that the Wu Hung Cave was destroyed, the five-horned demonic beast could only hold on for a few more minutes. As long as the five-horned demonic beast disappeared, would Ningyu still be afraid of Liu Chuanji? Chapter 1850. Let's see who's more powerful. After the Black Dragon Sword was filled with Yuan Qi, Ningyu let out a low roar and quickly dashed out. He waved the Black Dragon Sword in the air, and in a split second, several sword lights separated from the Black Dragon Sword. Hualala! The several sword lights weren't too big at first, but as they moved forward, they grew bigger and bigger. Kai kai! Moreover, the friction between the sword ray and the air produced a sizzling sound. Insignificant skill. Liu Chuanji didn't seem to care about the sword radiance that Ningyu had unleashed. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile as he casually waved his hand at the five-horned demonic beast, indicating that it should go up and block the attack. As for himself, he turned to look at the other side of the battlefield. The body is in the cow camp, the heart is in the han camp. Although Liu Chuanji was currently fighting against Ningyu, his attention was on another battlefield. Without ideals, what was the point of living? Liu Chuanji was sure that the outcome of the battle would be decided soon. His plan was to wait for the outcome of the battle over there to be decided, and then strike with lightning speed to capture everyone in one fell swoop. As long as he could capture the human devil, the blue-clothed martial artist, and the others, then use special methods to control them, then he would become an existence that could cover the sky with one hand in Pill Emperor City. Of course, this was Liu Chuanji's wishful thinking. Let's not talk about whether or not he could control the human devil and the others. Even if he could control them, he still wouldn't be able to dominate the Pill Emperor City. Because the Pill Emperor City had become a transit point for the immortal spirit realm, devil spirit realm, and higher planes of existence. There were more and more powerful martial artists, and it was gradually out of everyone's control. It could be said that even if a sage at the Sage Consummate Realm descended upon the Pill Emperor City, he wouldn't be able to become a supreme existence. You think I'm too weak? When Ningyu saw that Liu Chuanji wasn't going to make a move himself and was instead asking the five-horned demonic beast to make a move, Ningyu was immediately infuriated. The five-horned demonic beast was powerful, but that was in the past. The current five-horned demon beast strength was at most comparable to a mid-stage sage. Had Liu Chuanji lost his mind? Did he think that a warrior at the middle stage of the sage realm could kill him? Taking a deep breath, Ningyu decided to teach Liu Chuanji a lesson. He had originally wanted to kill the five-horned demonic beast, but now he had changed his strategy. He would first let go of the five-horned demonic beast and directly confront Liu Chuanji. As the saying goes, strike while you're down. Ningyu knew very well that Liu Chuanji didn't take him seriously. On one hand, he wanted to observe the battlefield on the other side. On the other hand, he wanted to rest. Ningyu did not want to wait for Liu Chuanji to recover before using his full strength. He first forced the five-horned beast to back off with a slash, then executed the monarch art, the netherworld reincarnation palm, the supreme 9 pure one sword art, and all his martial skills and arts. The earth-shattering Yuan Qi fluctuations all pressed towards Liu Chuanji. Even the demonic human tribe and the others, who were fighting in the distance, could not help but look over. This kid is so strong. The human demon's mouth opened slightly in surprise. Logically speaking, the human demon should not have been so surprised if he knew how abnormal Ningyu was. However, the battle strength that Ningyu had displayed had far surpassed the middle stage sage, and he could even contend with a peak late stage sage martial artist. How could the human demon not be surprised that Ningyu's strength had increased to such a level in such a short time? Damn it! Some were happy, while others were sad. The martial artist in blue was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He hated the people in the organization. If it were not for their infighting, he would have caught Ningyu and trained him in the trial field. Now that the Wu Hung Cave had been destroyed and Ningyu had escaped, he would definitely be blamed. However, the martial artist in blue was not a sentimental person. He was only a little angry, and then he focused on the battlefield. The martial artist in blue knew better than anyone else. He and the martial artist in white might not have the upper hand against Meng Chang'an, Zhao Hang, and the human demon. In fact, if they continued fighting like this, they might even be defeated. Therefore, while fighting, the blue-clothed cultivator's eyes turned and he began to think of a countermeasure. Damn it! Everyone was shocked, including Liu Chuanji. In comparison, Liu Chuanji, who was at the center of the whirlpool, was even more shocked. He had wanted to use the 5 horns to block Ning Yu, but now Ning Yu had failed to block it. Instead, he had fallen into a dangerous situation. The battle strength that Ning Yu had displayed had made him take him seriously. I don't believe that a mere peak sky supreme can overturn the heavens. Liu Chuanji withdrew his attention from the other battlefield, and with a cold voice, he rushed towards Ning Yu's attack. Only the brave would emerge victorious. At this point, Liu Chuanji knew that he couldn't retreat. As soon as he retreated, Ning Yu would definitely step up even more. The only thing he could do now was fight with Ning Yu to see who was stronger. Rumble. Liu Chuanji waved his hands again and again. He even used his trump card. In order to withstand the explosion and the attacks of the 4 horns and 5 horns back in the Wu Hung cave, he had used all the trump cards he had brought down from the higher planes. Otherwise, he would only need to use his trump card to kill Ning Yu. Without any trump cards, Liu Chuanji could only use his trump card. After all, he was the young master of Sacred God Palace. He knew a lot of tricks up his sleeves. Sacred God attack. With a growl, Liu Chuanji punched out. In an instant, a fist the size of a head pierced through the void and headed straight for Ning Yu. The Sacred God attack that Liu Chuanji used was the Sacred Divine Palace's ultimate technique. Although Liu Chuanji couldn't use the full power of the Sacred God attack due to his strength, he could still use 10% of it. Crack, crack, crack. Wherever the fist light passed, the space was completely torn apart. What the hell is that? Ning Yu's pupils constricted slightly as he looked at the fist lights that were constantly coming at him and dissipating all his attacks. His expression became extremely solemn. Black Dragon Sword, /. Although his expression was grave, Ning Yu couldn't retreat at this time. He gripped the Black Dragon Sword tightly and injected his soul power and primordial chi into the Black Dragon Sword. Swoosh! The Black Dragon Sword drew a beautiful arc in the air and then slashed down heavily. Crack, crack. The Black Dragon Sword made a crisp cracking sound when it came into contact with the fist. My God attack. As for Ning Yu, his eyes were locked as his body was pushed back several feet by the huge force. Although he had blocked the attack with difficulty and dissipated the fist, there was a large wound between Ning Yu's thumb and index finger. Blood flowed out. Crack. Ning Yu didn't pay much attention to the crack between his thumb and forefinger. Chapter 1851. The breaking of the Black Dragon Sword caused Ning Yu's expression to turn ashen. One had to know that he had taken the Black Dragon Sword from the demon spirit realms and family's war god, and Qianhao. In terms of grade, the Black Dragon Sword's grade was even higher than the Red Demon Sword. Ning Yu had been using the Black Dragon Sword all this time. Now that the Black Dragon Sword was broken, Ning Yu's battle prowess would drop by at least 10 to 20%. Damn it! While Ning Yu was shocked, How could Liu Chuanji not be shocked? In fact, Liu Chuanji was even more shocked than Ningyu. He had used the Sacred God Attack, a unique secret technique of the Sacred Divine Palace. Currently, the Sacred God Attack was his trump card. Even he could not use it a second time in a short period of time. Now that Ningyu had only paid the price of a broken black flying sword, he had blocked his Sacred God Attack. How could he not be shocked? However, while he was shocked, Liu Chuanji's mind gradually became active. He knew very well that if this continued, then the scales of victory might tip towards Ningyu in the end. This was because he had used up 50% of his energy reserves to use the Sacred God Attack. In other words, his battle prowess had dropped by 50%. His battle prowess had dropped by 50%, while Ningyu had only lost a black flying sword. No matter how he looked at it, he was the one who had suffered a loss. No, I must capture Ningyu. Liu Chuanji's eyes revealed a vicious look. He knew the situation before him. On the other side, the blue-clothed and white-clothed cultivators might not be able to hold on for much longer. He could only capture Ningyu before the blue-clothed and white-clothed cultivators retreated. Only then could he successfully escape. Otherwise, when Zhao Hang and the others were free, the one captured would not be Ningyu, but him. 5 horns. Liu Chuanji gritted his teeth and said coldly, "Go and stop Ningyu." Swish. After all, Liu Chuanji still had a 5-horned demonic beast on his side. Although the 5-point demonic beast was losing more and more energy, it was still able to hold off Ningyu for a short period of time. Since it was under Liu Chuanji's control, the 5-horned demonic beast's attitude in carrying out his orders was not the least bit ambiguous. Rumble. Almost in an instant, the 5-point demonic beast and Ningyu started fighting. I have to use the second Saint God Attack. Seeing the intense battle between the 5-horned demonic beast and Ningyu, Liu Chuanji decided that no matter what, he had to unleash a second Sacred God Attack. Because in the current situation, if they wanted to capture Ningyu, they had to use the Saint God's attack. Even if they had to suffer heavy injuries, they had to do it. Trying to ambush me? As Ningyu battled the 5-horned demonic beast, he paid attention to Liu Chuanji's movements. At first, when Ningyu fought with the 5-horned demonic beast, he would feel some pressure. But as time passed, Ningyu realized that the 5-horned demonic beast's strength had already dropped to a critical point. At this critical point, he could kill the 5-horned demonic beast without any qualms. However, Ningyu did not do so. Killing the 5-horned demonic beast now was not the best or wisest decision. Liu Chuanji was preparing to use the second Sacred God Attack, but Ningyu's idea was to not alert Liu Chuanji first. Then, he would suddenly attack when Liu Chuanji reached a critical point. In that case, not only would Liu Chuanji's Sacred God Attack fail, but he would also be captured. After all, Liu Chuanji was the young master of the Sacred Divine Palace, a high-level existential plane. If he captured him, he would have something to use against him when he entered a high-level existential plane in the future. At the very least, he would not be in a completely passive situation when he met the people from the Sacred Divine Palace. Drip. Drip. Time passed slowly. On the surface, the battle between Ningyu and the 5-horned demonic beast had reached its climax. Either side could win. However, only Ningyu himself knew the exact situation. He could defeat the 5-horned demonic beast at any time. Right now, more than half of Ningyu's attention was on Liu Chuanji. As long as Liu Chuanji showed signs of activating the Sacred God Attack, he would immediately defeat the 5-horned demonic beast and then forcibly capture Liu Chuanji. Human effort was the key to success. There was still some difficulty, but he had to overcome it to obtain victory in the end. Sacred God. Another few minutes passed. A fierce look appeared in Liu Chuanji's eyes. He waved his hands repeatedly and growled at the same time. However, Liu Chuanji's growl came to an abrupt halt. There was no other reason. Liu Chuanji had discovered something terrifying. In the blink of an eye, Ningyu had defeated the 5-horned demonic beast and forced it back to its original form. If it was just Ningyu defeating the 5-horned demonic beast, Liu Chuanji would not have been so nervous. More importantly, Ningyu had already turned around and was heading straight for him. Liu Chuanji was panicking. This was the crucial moment for him to unleash the sacred god attack. Once it was interrupted, it would be extremely difficult to unleash it again. It was practically impossible. Liu Chuanji was unwilling. He was extremely unwilling. However, even though he was unwilling, Liu Chuanji knew that he had to retreat. Otherwise, only death awaited him. The mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow. We will meet again. Before leaving, Liu Chuanji did not forget to say some harsh words to Ningyu. Then, he tore open the void and tried to retreat. Sometimes, foolish people would always do foolish things. If Liu Chuanji had not said those harsh words and immediately retreated, he might have been able to escape. But when he said those harsh words, it delayed his retreat time. Although it was only a short second, it was enough. In less than a second, Ningyu had arrived in front of Liu Chuanji. He clenched his right hand into a fist and punched out. Crack! Liu Chuanji, who was caught off guard, instinctively crossed his arms in front of his chest in an attempt to block Ningyu's attack. One was an active attack, while the other was an instinctive reaction. The answer was obvious. One of Liu Chuanji's arms was broken. His entire body was like a kite with a broken string as he retreated several meters. Let me give you a piece of advice. Don't put up any meaningless resistance. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what will happen. Seeing that Liu Chuanji had retreated, Ningyu hurriedly chased after him. He stomped his right foot on Liu Chuanji's chest and said coldly, "Open your mind and let me control you." Impossible. Liu Chuanji's pupils constricted. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kill me. I will never let you control me." Hihi, you're still so stubborn even when you're about to die. The corners of Ningyu's lips curled up slightly. If you really wanted to die, you would have killed yourself long ago. Why do you still need me to do it? Since you don't want to die, quickly open your mind and let me control you. Otherwise, I will definitely let you have a taste of my power. The more one was unafraid of death, the more likely they were the most afraid of death. Generally speaking, those who did not speak were the most terrifying. The so-called impervious to everything was referring to that kind of person. Chapter 1852. Kill me or torture me, do as you wish. Liu Chuanji's eyes were cold as he said fiercely, "I'm telling you, I'm the young master of Sacred Divine Palace. If you kill me, you'll be in deep trouble. May I ask, how many young masters are there in Sacred Divine Palace?" Ningyu asked with a smirk. Ningyu knew very well that some big forces had more than one young master. In fact, some big forces even had dozens of young masters. Breeding tactics. Let all the young masters compete together, and the last one to win would be qualified to inherit the position of sect master. If Liu Chuanji's position in Sacred Divine Palace was high, Ningyu would consider temporarily restraining him and throwing him into the Tower of Yuzuan. But if Liu Chuanji's position in Sacred Divine Palace was low, and he was only a young master ranked at the bottom, then Ningyu would definitely not spare his life. After all, a person with a low position was of no use to Ningyu and would only be a burden. Even if he killed him, Sacred Divine Palace would not go to war for him. No comment. Liu Chuanji replied coldly. He did not want to tell Ningyu his identity and status. Crack. Ningyu would not be polite with Liu Chuanji. He exerted a little force with his right foot and broke one of Liu Chuanji's ribs. "Are you going to tell me or not?" Ningyu asked again. "I don't know." Liu Chuanji gritted his teeth, not intending to tell the truth. "Very well." Ningyu took a deep breath, then grabbed Liu Chuanji and pressed his right hand against his head. The spirit transformation technique circulated rapidly, and a terrifying devouring power emerged from Ningyu's palm and entered Liu Chuanji's body. The terrifying devouring power kept devouring Liu Chuanji's mind. Almost instantly, 1/10 of the primordial qi in Liu Chuanji's mind was devoured. Although Ningyu's devouring speed was not as strong as Ninglu's, it was not weak either. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before the essence in Liu Chuanji's mind was completely devoured. After the essence in Liu Chuanji's mind was completely devoured, Liu Chuanji's sea of consciousness and his whole body were next. Liu Chuanji seemed determined not to tell Ningyu. As time passed, half of the essence qi in his body had been devoured by Ningyu, but he had no intention of compromising. What a piece of trash. I thought that I would be able to advance to the semi-sage realm after devouring you. But now, it seems like I'm still lacking a bit. Since Liu Chuanji refused to compromise, Ningyu decided to devour him completely. However, Ningyu was still a little disappointed. After all, in Ningyu's opinion, Liu Chuanji, who was at the pinnacle of the sage realm, should be able to advance to the semi-sage realm. But according to the current situation, even if he devoured Liu Chuanji, he would only be able to maintain his cultivation at the pinnacle heavenly sovereign realm, and he couldn't reach the quasi-saint realm. Actually, it was no wonder. In order to use the sacred god's attack, Liu Chuanji had already used up most of his essence qi. By devouring the remaining essence qi in Liu Chuanji's body, Ningyu could slightly increase his strength, which was already a blessing in disguise. That's Liu Chuanji, the young master of Sacred Divine Palace. His cultivation is at the pinnacle of the sage realm. How could he be killed by an ordinary warrior at the pinnacle of the Sky Supreme realm? An ordinary warrior at the pinnacle of the Sky Supreme realm? Don't think that Ningyu's cultivation is only at the pinnacle of the Sky Supreme realm. His combat strength is enough to kill a warrior at the late stage of the sage realm. Now that he has devoured Liu Chuanji, he can even fight against a warrior at the pinnacle of the sage realm. A warrior who can fight against a warrior at the pinnacle of the sage realm? You're kidding, right? Seeing that Ningyu had captured Liu Chuanji in such a short time, the warriors hidden in the surroundings were all in disbelief. Among them, several warriors began to discuss in secret. Their views were all on Ningyu. Some said that Ningyu was an ordinary warrior and that Liu Chuanji was incompetent. As the young master of Sacred Divine Palace, he was actually defeated by an ordinary warrior. Others said that Ningyu was not simple and could fight against a warrior at the pinnacle of the sage realm as a pinnacle of the Sky Supreme realm. Are you kidding? Haha, if you want to stay and fish in troubled waters, I won't stop you. Anyway, I'm leaving. The few cultivators who thought that Ningyu was powerful laughed coldly. They turned around and flew towards the alchemy sovereign city. Let's go too. Let's quickly inform our leaders of the situation here. The remaining cultivators looked at each other before leaving with faces full of unwillingness. Just as the first few warriors had said, the last few warriors wanted to stay because they wanted to fish in troubled waters and fish for some benefits. But the current situation was already very unfavorable for everyone. If they stayed, they might be wiped out by Ningyu. If Ningyu really attacked them, the consequences would be unimaginable. In order to ensure their own safety and to send the news back to the Pill Emperor city in advance, they chose to retreat like the warriors before them. Phew. Feeling that the warriors hidden in the void had disappeared, Ningyu could not help but let out a long sigh. Although there were no pinnacle of the Sage Realm warriors in the void, with so many warriors staying here, Ningyu felt like there was a fishbone stuck in his throat. As the saying went, how could one allow others to sleep beside one's bed? Ningyu did not want to wait for them to win and others to take advantage of the situation. Wait. Just as Ningyu was letting his imagination run wild, a familiar voice suddenly rang in his ears. Hearing this, Ningyu's face lit up. Needless to say, the person who said this was none other than Liu Chuanji. Seeing that the vitality in his body was about to be consumed by Ningyu, Liu Chuanji finally could not stand it anymore. He hurriedly said, "Among all the young masters in the Sacred Divine Palace, I am ranked in the top 1,000. Fart." Hearing Liu Chuanji's words, Ningyu was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Originally, Ningyu's idea was very simple. As long as Liu Chuanji was ranked in the top 10 young masters of the Sacred Divine Palace, or even the top 20, he would consider sparing Liu Chuanji's life. However, Liu Chuanji was only ranked in the top 1,000 young masters of the Sacred Divine Palace. How could Ningyu spare him? Putting aside the fact that the Sacred Divine Palace did not have that many young masters, even if they did, it would not matter much to the Sacred Divine Palace if a young master ranked in the top 1,000 were killed. No one would pay attention to it. Don't be in a hurry to kill me. Although I am only ranked in the top 1,000 young masters of the Sacred Divine Palace, my grandfather is very powerful. My grandfather is an elder of the Sacred Divine Palace, and his status in the sacred divine palace is very high. How could Liu Chuanji not know what Ningyu was thinking? In order to survive, he had no choice but to make himself more useful. I don't care what your grandfather's status in the sacred divine palace is. In short, your status is not enough for me to spare you, but, at this point, Ningyu paused for a moment and then continued, if you can call Di Xiao and He Jiming over, I can consider sparing your life and not killing you. Di Xiao, He Jiming? Chapter 1853. The two of them are far away from Dan Emperor City. Even if they come now, it will take at least a few days to get here. Liu Chuanji took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. Since Ningyu wanted to capture Di Xiao and He Jiming, it meant that he was safe for the time being. Only by surviving would they be able to plan for the long term and think about how to escape. Otherwise, it would be pointless. 3 hours. Ningyu stretched out 3 fingers and said, I don't care about anything else. Anyway, if I don't see Di Xiao and He Jiming in 3 hours, you will have no reason to live in this world. 3 hours is too short. They can't. Liu Chuanji shook his head and wanted to bargain. However, before Liu Chuanji could finish his sentence, he stopped abruptly. Because of Ningyu's action, Liu Chuanji knew that nothing he said now would be of any use. He was left with only 2 choices. First, find a way to get Di Xiao and He Jiming here within 3 hours. Second, die. In the face of death, no matter how strong one's mental endurance was, he would still feel some fear. Liu Chuanji's concealment ability was very deep. Only now did his face reveal a look of fear. Moreover, the fear on his face was not particularly obvious. Time flew by quickly. On the other side of the battlefield, the warriors in blue and the warriors in white showed signs of retreating. In other words, the balance of victory was gradually tilting towards Meng Chang'an and the others. If this situation continued, the battle would be over in an hour at most. What should I do? On the other side of the battlefield, the sooner the victor was decided, the more irritated Liu Chuanji felt. One Ningyu was enough to make him anxious. It was conceivable that if Meng Chang'an and the others joined in, it would be difficult for him to escape even if he had wings. Fight. Liu Chuanji was indeed the young master of Sacred God Palace. Although he was ranked around 1000, he still had his pride. He gritted his teeth and immediately wrapped all the pneuma in his body around his ankles. Then, he suddenly exerted strength in his legs and his body shot straight into the distance like a spring. In order to escape from Ningyu, Liu Chuanji did not hesitate to burn his soul power and pneuma to increase his speed. Xiu. Unfortunately, Ningyu's attention was always on him. Although he was fast, he had expended too much yuan qi after using the sacred god's attack twice, so his speed was much lower than when he was at his peak. Ever since Ningyu reached the pinnacle Sky Supreme realm, his speed had taken another qualitative leap. It was impossible to chase after Liu Chuanji when he was at his peak, but chasing after Liu Chuanji when he was injured was not too big of a problem. I gave you face, but you don't want it. Almost as soon as Liu Chuanji escaped, Ningyu gave chase and caught up to Liu Chuanji in a very short time. This time, Ningyu would not foolishly hold back. Raising his fist, he gathered all of his yuan qi and soul force into his wrist. Ningyu turned his hand over and punched Liu Chuanji's heart, bringing along a violent yuan qi gale. Catcher! Bang! The crisp sound was accompanied by the muffled sound of a body hitting the ground. Ningyu, you've offended the sacred divine palace. You're doomed. Fart! Liu Chuanji raised his head to look at Ningyu, his eyes cold. He used all of his strength to say these words. But before Liu Chuanji could finish speaking, Ningyu raised his right foot and stomped down heavily. Although Ningyu's strength had not reached his peak, it was not difficult for him to make Liu Chuanji vomit blood. I'll spare your dog life for now. In fact, when Ningyu's last kick had been about killing Liu Chuanji. But when his ankle was only a few centimeters away from Liu Chuanji, he instantly changed his mind. Killing Liu Chuanji would at most make him feel a little better. It would not be of any real help to him. But if he spared Liu Chuanji, he might have another chess piece in his hands when he went to a higher plane. There was a saying that went very well. Death could be spared, but punishment was inevitable. Although Ning Yu had spared Liu Chuanji's life, he had crippled his cultivation. This was because Ning Yu understood that he could only be at ease after completely crippling Liu Chuanji's cultivation. After all, Liu Chuanji was sent to the celestial spirit realm to carry out a mission, which meant that he had some ability. Ning Yu did not want to be killed by Liu Chuanji out of the blue. Thus, crippling Liu Chuanji's cultivation was the best choice. But after his cultivation was crippled, Liu Chuanji vomited a mouthful of blood. Then, his pupils constricted and he looked a little dispirited. Get in. Ning Yu did not care whether Liu Chuanji was dispirited or not. He grabbed Liu Chuanji's shoulder and threw him into the Tower of Yuzuan. As his enemies grew stronger, Ning Yu no longer liked using his storage ring. Compared to the Tower of Yuzuan, the level of a storage ring was still a little low. It was not a big problem to use a storage ring to trap a Sky Supreme. However, it was a little dangerous to use it to trap a Saint Realm cultivator. For safety's sake, Ning Yu had made the right choice by throwing Liu Chuanji into the Tower of Yuzuan. Retreat. Just as Ning Yu restrained Liu Chuanji, there was a result on the other side of the battlefield. The blue-clothed cultivator and the white-clothed cultivator glanced at each other before moving in unison, entering the trash of the Wu Heng cave. The void split open, and the blue-robed martial artist and the white-robed martial artist entered, disappearing without a trace in an instant. Seeing the two cultivators disappear, Meng Chang'an and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. The worries in their hearts were finally put to rest. To be honest, even though the blue-clothed and white-clothed martial artists were at a disadvantage, Meng Chang'an and the others did not dare to be careless. After all, the blue-clothed and white-clothed martial artists at their peak were not people to be trifled with. If this wasn't the celestial spirit realm, Meng Chang'an and the rest would have been killed long ago. Everyone, rest here for a few minutes. We'll set off for the Pill Emperor city later. Meng Chang'an immediately sat down and waved his sleeves. Several elixirs flew towards Zhao Hang and the human demon. As a pinnacle 9th grade alchemist, it was a good habit to bring elixirs with him. Although the elixirs that Meng Chang'an took out weren't heaven-defying, they could help them recover in a short period of time. After devouring Meng Chang'an's elixirs, Zhao Hang and the human demon were full of vigor. Ning Yu, I never thought that we would meet in the Half-Cloud Mountains' everlasting cave. The human devil moved, arriving beside Ning Yu in an instant. He sighed, I thought we would meet again in Pill Emperor City. Senior human demon, we have time to talk about these things. Do you think we should head to the Pill Emperor City first? Ning Yu did not want to waste too much time here. He wanted to head to the Pill Emperor City as soon as possible and meet up with Ning Lu and the rest. Chapter 1854. Alchemy Emperor City. In a room above the city gate tower. Dong dong dong. Two martial artists sat opposite each other on chairs. In front of them was a round table, and on the table was a small piece of dead wood. One of the martial artists reached out with his right hand and tapped the table lightly. When Meng Chang'an returns, give him this small piece of the world tree branch and see his reaction. Master Gongyang, do you suspect that Meng Chang'an also has the world tree branch? Hearing the first martial artist's words, the other martial artist frowned and said doubtfully, a few decades ago, an expert used a secret technique to calculate that none of the world tree branch in the entire celestial spirit realm is valuable. Yang Zhon, use your brain. Gongyang Qing pointed to his head and said, the celestial spirit realm is full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Moreover, the world tree has the ability to block heaven's secrets. If it was so easily calculated, it wouldn't be called the world tree. Makes sense. Yang Zhon thought about it and felt that Gongyang Qing's words made sense. Coming. At this moment, Gongyang Qing suddenly stood up and said plainly, bring the world tree branch. You must deliver it to Meng Chang'an. At this point, Gongyang Qing paused for a moment before continuing. Also, tell Meng Chang'an that Sun Feng and Chang Tian are in my hands. If you want to save them, you'd better return that thing that you lost not long ago. Wang Wang. The moment he finished speaking, Gongyang Qing's figure flashed and gradually melted into the void. As Gongyang Qing disappeared, Yang Zhon also hurriedly disappeared from the room. Wait. At the same time, when Yang Zhon disappeared, 4 people gradually appeared at the main gate of Alchemy Emperor City. Looking closely, these 4 were none other than Ning Yu, Meng Chang'an, and the rest. Meng Chang'an raised his right hand slightly and said, "Someone's here." "Someone's here?" Zhao Hang and Ning Yu were slightly stunned when they heard this, and then they exerted their perception. SSS. As soon as they released their senses, Ning Yu and Zhao Hang gasped at the same time. Hua. At this moment, a crack appeared in the void and a martial artist appeared in their line of sight. The peak of the sage is infinitely close to the sage great perfection. Ning Yu and Zhao Hang's expressions became a little ugly when they felt the aura of the warrior in front of them. Ning Yu's strength could only kill warriors of the late stage of Sage Realm at most. If he encountered warriors of the peak of Sage Realm, he could only run away. He could not fight them. Although Zhao Hang was slightly stronger, he could only fight against martial artists at the peak of the Sage Realm. Once he encountered a martial artist whose strength was infinitely close to the great completion of a sage, he could only run away. Among Ning Yu's group of 4, only Meng Chang'an and Human Demon could remain calm when facing this martial artist. "President Meng, how have you been?" The corners of Yang Zhon's mouth curled up as he looked playfully at Meng Chang'an and said, "Master Ram asked you to chase after that thief. I wonder if you succeeded." No comment. Meng Chang'an's gaze turned cold as he said in a solemn voice, "Let me give you a piece of advice. It's best for you to move aside. Otherwise, I can't guarantee what will happen." Ha ha ha. As if he had heard the funniest joke in the world, Yang Zhon threw his head back and laughed maniacally. Soon after, he said coldly, "I think the one beside you is the thief. Since you've brought him back, leave the rest to me." As soon as he said that, Yang Zhon suddenly stomped on the ground and leaped up. Yang Zhon's target was not Ning Yu, Zhao Hang, or Meng Chang'an. It was the Human Demon. Gong Yangqing's intention was to give the branch of the world tree to Meng Chang'an and see his reaction. Then, he would use Sun Feng and Chang Tian to threaten Meng Chang'an to get back what he had lost not long ago. However, Yang Zhon changed his strategy. His sixth sense told him that there was something wrong with the warrior that Meng Chang'an brought back. Among the 4 warriors, he could detect the specific cultivation of Meng Chang'an and the other 2 young warriors. Only the last old man, he couldn't detect his exact cultivation. Yang Zhon could not help but be shocked by this situation. One had to know that Yang Zhon was a warrior that was infinitely close to becoming a complete stage saint. Looking at Yang Zhon, who was charging at him, the Human Demon frowned slightly. He turned to look at Ning Yu and used his right hand to draw a line across his neck. The Human Demon's intention was simple. If Ning Yu wanted him to kill Yang Zhon, he would kill him. If Ning Yu did not let him, he would spare Yang Zhon's dog life. It would be best if you can capture him alive. Ning Yu opened his mouth and transmitted his voice. Understood. The Human Demon nodded. Instead of retreating, he charged straight at Yang Zhon. Xiu. The moment the Human Demon charged out, Meng Chang'an did not stay idle. As the Human Demon and Yang Zhon fought, Meng Chang'an charged to the other side. Rumble. A great battle broke out in an instant. Poochie. The battle ended as quickly as it started. In just one move, Yang Zhon was sent flying, blood spurting out of his mouth. Bang! In the next moment, Yang Zhon fell from the sky and crashed heavily into the ground. How is this possible? Being defeated in one move, Yang Zhon was dumbfounded. Although his strength was not the strongest in Pill Emperor City, it was enough to be ranked in the top 5. Now that he was defeated in one move, didn't that mean that the person who defeated him could be ranked in the top 3 in the entire Pill Emperor City? Thinking of this, Yang Zhon immediately thought of retreating. After all, there was still someone glaring at him. No. Yang Zhon hurriedly looked at the void. Bang! Just as Yang Zhon's gaze shifted to the void, a cultivator fell from the void. Big brother. Seeing the familiar figure falling from the void, Yang Zhon's pupils constricted and his expression turned ugly. Yang Zhon, Yang Xiong, just the 2 of you dare to block us? Meng Chang'an landed beside the Human Demon and said indifferently, "If you know what's good for you, scram. Otherwise, you should know the consequences." Me. Until we meet again. Yang Zhon snorted coldly, then grabbed Yang Xiong and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Why did you let them go? Seeing Meng Chang'an let the two brothers go, Zhao Hang frowned, a little confused. Hit the snake where it hurts, do not hold back. Zhao Hang could not understand why Meng Chang'an let Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong go. Sun Feng, Chang Tian, as well as Ningyu's friends are in their hands. How could Meng Chang'an not want to kill Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong? But Meng Chang'an was very helpless. Gong Yangqing transmitted his voice to him earlier, telling him that Sun Feng and the rest were in his hands. If he wanted to save Sun Feng and the rest, he had to let Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong go obediently. Meng Chang'an knew Gong Yangqing's character. If he did not let Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong go, then Sun Feng and the rest would definitely die. There was no other reason. Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong's status in Gong Yangqing's heart was very low, so low that he could abandon them at any time. But Sun Feng and the rest had a lot of weight in his and Ningyu's hearts. They could not be abandoned. Then what do we do now? Go find Gong Yangqing? Chapter 1855. Let's go to the city lord's mansion first, and then we can discuss this further. Meng Chang'an didn't waste his breath. He pondered for a moment, and then his figure flashed towards the city governor's estate. Having just experienced a huge battle, Meng Chang'an was very clear that he would not be able to return to the Alchemy Union in a short period of time. At this moment, Gong Yangqing was in the Alchemy Union. If he were to return rashly, he might very well be schemed against by Gong Yangqing. Although Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong weren't their match, Gong Yangqing himself wasn't weak. Xiu. Zhao Hang, Ningyu, and the others looked at each other when they saw Meng Chang'an flashing towards the city governor's estate. Then, they flashed out in unison and followed closely behind Meng Chang'an. Buzz. Not long after Meng Chang'an and the others left, the surrounding void trembled, and several martial artists instantly disappeared. Meanwhile, inside a certain room in the Alchemy Union, Gong Yangqing raised his right hand and slapped Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong twice. These two crisp sounds were accompanied by Gong Yangqing's furious roar. Trash. Two warriors at the peak of the Sage Realm, who are infinitely close to the Sage consummation, can't even handle a small matter. What use do I have for you? Gong Yangqing was furious. Ever since he had descended into the immortal spirit realm, it could be said that he had run into walls everywhere. First, Meng Chang'an feigned civility with him. Then, Song Wu failed to snatch the Qilin from Four Corner City. Now, he had asked Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong to handle a small matter, but they had actually messed it up. If he hadn't captured Sun Feng and the others in advance, Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong wouldn't have been able to return alive. The two of you, spread the news that 3 days from now, I will be refining in the Pill Emperor Plaza in the Pill Emperor City. At that time, I will welcome any cultivators above the heavenly sovereign realm, as well as alchemists with soul forces above the 8th grade to observe. Gong Yangqing waved his hand and said, in addition, inform Mo Minute to come back early. Yes. Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong didn't dare to talk back to Gong Yangqing. They hurriedly nodded and slowly left the room. When they left the room, Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong heaved a sigh of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. The outside world might think that Mo Minute was the strongest and was Gong Yangqing's right-hand man. But Yang Zhon and Yang Xiong knew. The truly valiant one was Gong Yangqing. Just the aura that Gong Yangqing emitted was something that the two of them could not withstand. We can't screw this up again. Yang Zhon thought about it and said to Yang Xiong, go spread the news. I'll go inform Mo Minute and have him come back early. Sure. Yang Xiong did not waste any time. He directly tore open the void and tunneled in. As for Yang Zhon, he vanished into thin air. Although the Alchemy Emperor City was large, some news spread surprisingly fast. In less than an hour, nearly all the cultivators in the vast Pill Monarch City knew that Gong Yangqing would be refining medicinal pills at the Pill Monarch Plaza 3 days later. Who wouldn't want to see a 10th grade alchemist refining pills in public? Hence, apart from the Pill Emperor City, even the alchemists from the surrounding cities started to move, wanting to rush to the Pill Emperor City on the same day that Gong Yangqing refined the medicinal pills. Hey, Have you heard? I heard that Great Master Ram will be accepting a disciple this time. Impossible, right? Great Master Ram is a 10th grade alchemist. Who can be qualified to be his disciple? That goes without saying. Of course it's me. Get lost. You're just a 3rd grade alchemist, while I'm a 4th grade alchemist. If Great Master Ram is really accepting a disciple, it's definitely me. On the streets, inside the restaurants. Almost everyone was talking about this matter. And inside a secret room in the City Lord Manor, 5 martial artists were currently pacing back and forth inside. Ning Yu, Zhao Hang, Meng Chang'an, Human Demon. 4 of the martial artists were none other than precisely Ning Yu, Zhao Hang, and the rest. As for the last martial artist, it was very obvious that he was the Pill Emperor City's City Lord. An hour ago, Yang Zhon left the Pill Emperor City. The Pill Emperor City's City Lord was called Yi Jiansong. His cultivation was the same as Meng Chang'an, Peak Sage Realm. At this time, his expression appeared slightly solemn as he said, according to my estimation, he should have gone to inform Mo Minute who's Mo Minute. Ning Yu revealed a doubtful expression as he asked. Mo Minute is Ram Qing's right-hand man. He's very powerful. Even if President Meng and I join forces, we might not be his match. Yi Jiansong thought for a moment before saying, it'll be very difficult to rescue your friends in 3 days. As long as his cultivation hasn't reached the Sage Realm great perfection, I have a way to deal with him. Human Demon appeared very confident. Among the 5 martial artists in the room, in terms of strength, Human Demon was the strongest. Even if Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong joined forces, they might not be his match. Yi Jiansong stared at Human Demon, then shook his head and said, your strength is about the same as Mo Min's. About the same? At this moment, Ning Yu's expression finally changed. Human Demon had already broken the energy seal in his body. His current strength was unprecedentedly strong. And that Mo Minute could actually be evenly matched with Human Demon. This really shocked Ning Yu. Can we sneak into the Pill Alchemist Union in advance? Capture Ram Qing alive. Zhao Hang's expression was cold as he said in a low voice, as long as we can capture Ram Qing, not only can we save your friends, we can even obtain the origin energy. Don't think too much. Yi Jiansong rolled his eyes at Zhao Hang and said huffily, although Mo Minute is Gong Yangqing's right-hand man and his strength is formidable, in such a massive Pill Emperor city, Mo Min's strength might not even be able to rank in the top 3. Can't be in the top 3? Hearing this, Zhao Hang's heart skipped a beat. He could not help but look at Human Demon. However strong Human Demon was, Mo Minute was as strong. If even Mo Minute could not be in the top 3 in Pill Emperor City, didn't that mean that there were at least 3 martial artists stronger than Human Demon in Pill Emperor City? Human Demon easily defeated Yang Zhon. His strength was already strong enough. Martial artists stronger than him, how strong would they be? That's right, Mo Minute can't be in the top 3. Yi Jiansong shook his head first, then said again, Ram Qing's strength should be in the top 3. What? This time, Zhao Hang's mouth opened wide in shock. His face was full of disbelief. If the truth was really as Yi Jiansong said, then wanting to snatch the origin energy from Ram Qing's hands again would be even more difficult than ascending to the heavens. So, what we should consider now is how to deal with it 3 days later, and not sneak into the Pill Alchemist Union to find trouble with Ram Qing now. Yi Jiansong said. Why don't we unite all the experts in Pill Emperor City and let them deal with Ram Qing together? After a moment of silence, Ning Yu opened his mouth and voiced out the idea in his heart. What do you mean? Hearing Ning Yu's words, Zhao Hang and the rest revealed doubtful expressions and asked. Chapter 1856. It's very simple. Spread the news that Gong Yangqing possesses origin energy. Ning Yu said straightforwardly, as if he didn't want to shock them to death. No, absolutely not. Just as Ning Yu's voice faded, Zhao Hang's head rapidly shook as he said, the matter of Gong Yangqing possessing origin energy must not be known by too many people. I think this is a good idea. Meng Chang'an and Zhao Hang had different opinions. He was more in favor of Ning Yu's method. Spread the news and let more people know that Gong Yangqing possessed origin energy. Gong Yangqing had sent out invitations earlier, causing most of the celestial spirit realm experts to descend upon Pill Emperor City, spreading the news that he would publicly refine elixirs in 3 days' time, and that the medicinal catalyst was a Chileen, once again attracted a large number of experts. Now, if they spread the news that Gong Yangqing possessed origin energy, at least 90% of the experts in the entire celestial spirit realm would descend upon this place. Even the devil spirit realm, which was adjacent to the celestial spirit realm, might send experts over. After all, origin energy was something that everyone dreamed of. If anyone could obtain a strand of origin energy, their strength would increase by several times in a short period of time. I agree. I agree as well. Yi Jiansong and the human demon's opinion was similar to Meng Chang'an's. They all agreed to spread the news. There were a total of 5 people in the room, and 4 of them agreed to spread the news. Zhao Hang could only nod helplessly. It's not impossible to spread the news, but I hope that you can help me snatch the origin energy in the end. You don't have to say that. We don't want the origin energy to fall into his hands either. Yi Jiansong smiled slightly. Leave the matter of spreading the news to me. Rest well in the next 3 days, and strive to increase your strength by another level. Creak. As he spoke, Yi Jiansong pushed open the door and walked out. 10 minutes after Yi Jiansong left, Zhao Hang said, President Meng, is this Yi Jiansong, City Lord Yi, reliable? Don't worry, City Lord Yi is definitely trustworthy. Meng Chang'an waved his hand and said, in the next 3 days, we will do our best to increase our cultivation. Everyone will try to increase their strength by about 10%. After saying this, Meng Chang'an paused for a moment, then took out a few pills and threw them to Ningyu. Pa. Ningyu stretched out his right hand and hurriedly caught the pill that Meng Chang'an threw over. If you swallow these pills, you might be able to raise your cultivation to the early stage of the Sage Realm in the next 3 days. Seeing Ningyu receiving the pellet, Meng Chang'an said, right now, you're a pinnacle heavenly sovereign, and your strength can confront late-phase Saint Realm cultivators. The moment you reach the initial phase Saint Realm, your strength will be comparable to pinnacle Saint Realm cultivators. This way, we can be more assured 3 days from now. 3 days later, it would definitely be a bitter battle. Meng Chang'an, Human Devil, Zhao Hang, and even Yi Jiansong were all very strong. In a one-on-one battle, any one of them would be able to contend against a peak sage. Only Ningyu was the weakest. Although Ningyu could confront a late-phase Saint Realm cultivator with his pinnacle heavenly sovereign cultivation, the people he would be facing in 3 days should be around the pinnacle Saint Realm. The battle would be cruel. Meng Chang'an couldn't guarantee that he could take care of Ningyu in 3 days, so he gave the most precious pellet to Ningyu, hoping that Ningyu could improve further. He didn't hope that Ningyu could kill a pinnacle Saint Realm cultivator, but he hoped that he wouldn't be easily killed when facing a pinnacle Saint Realm cultivator. This room has the densest energy, and there's also a support array. Ningyu, you can cultivate in this room. The rest of us will go to another room. Next. Meng Chang'an and the rest gently pushed open the door and walked out. Seeing Meng Chang'an and the rest leave, Ningyu's expression gradually turned grave. Meng Chang'an and the rest were in the room just now, so Ningyu couldn't lose his temper and had to stay calm. Now that they left, Ningyu was a little angry. Ningyu didn't care too much about Yunmu and the rest being captured. After all, the relationship between them wasn't very good. However, Ninglu and the little Kailin being captured made Ningyu extremely angry. Although he was angry, Ningyu knew that he couldn't do anything now. With his current strength, he could at most fight or kill a late-phase Saint Realm cultivator. Against a pinnacle Saint Realm cultivator, unless the other party's strength wasn't at its peak, he wouldn't have any chance of winning. If he wanted to play a role in the battle in 3 days, he had to increase his strength to the Sage Realm. Moreover, it wasn't enough to increase his strength to the Sage Realm. He still needed to cultivate the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Art, Netherworld Samsara Palm, and Emperor God Technique to another level. Food had to be eaten bite by bite, and the road had to be walked step by step. Ningyu took out the pellet that Meng Chang'an gave him and threw it into his mouth. Rumble. As soon as the pellet entered his mouth, Ningyu felt several terrifying energy waves burst out from the pellet and instantly swept through his body. So terrifying? Such a sudden change shocked Ningyu. He originally thought that the pellet that Meng Chang'an took out was at most 10th grade. Who would have thought that the quality of the pellet that Meng Chang'an took out was surprisingly high? Although Ningyu didn't know what the specific quality of the pellet was, Ningyu knew that it was at least over 10th grade. The Tao of pellet had a clear division above the 10th grade. The 10th grade pellet was also known as the Emperor rank pellet, so the 10th grade alchemist was known as the Alchemy Emperor. Above the Emperor rank pellet, there were Sage rank pellet, Immortal rank pellet, and Divine rank pellet. Starting from the Emperor rank, it could be further divided into 10 grades, which corresponded to the level of the alchemist. Gong Yangqing's alchemist rank should be around the 3rd grade Emperor rank. The owner of the storage ring in Ningyu's hand, the Alchemy Emperor, should be between the 5th grade and 8th grade Emperor rank. Spirit Transformation Technique. Ningyu hurriedly used the Spirit Transformation Technique and began to refine the vigorous energy in his body. The strength of Ningyu's soul power was currently at the level of Qi to liquid, and it wasn't too far away from liquid to pill. With this strength of soul power, Ningyu could completely multitask. In other words, Ningyu cultivated the Spirit Transformation Technique and strived to cultivate it to the 9th level, or even the 10th level. While devouring and refining the energy, he constantly broke through the barrier of the Sage Realm. Generally speaking, if one wanted to break through to the Sage Realm from the Immortal Spirit Realm, they had to break through the barrier of the Sage Realm. Originally, it was very difficult for Ningyu to break through the barrier of the Sage Realm by himself. This was because the barrier of the Sage Realm and the Plane Barrier had some connection. Any cultivator who wanted to break through to the Sage Realm would need another Sage-level cultivator to protect them. However, the few pellets that Meng Chang'an gave were more special. In addition, the room that Ningyu stayed in had an ancient formation around it, so when Ningyu broke through the barrier of the Sage Realm, he didn't need another sage to protect him. Chapter 1857. While Ningyu was breaking through to the Sage Realm, in a certain sealed room in the Alchemy Union, the little Chelin, Ninglu, Ziyun, and the rest were all trapped within. If one were to take a closer look, they would see that all of their cultivations had returned to 0. At this moment, even a true martial stage practitioner could easily defeat them. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have come to Pill Emperor City. Yun Mu's expression was ugly. After devouring the immortal crystals obtained from Four Corner City, her cultivation had been restored to the Sage Realm. Originally, she was still thinking of finding an opportunity to recover to her peak state in the Alchemy Emperor City. Now, it seemed that not dying was already a blessing. If you stay at the Wuheng Cave, you might die even more miserably. Ninglu rolled his eyes and said, "You'd better save some strength. When Ningyu and the others come to save us, I don't want to be a burden." In fact, Ninglu had long disliked Yun Mu. Along the way, she was the one who screamed the loudest. He didn't have much strength, but he had quite a temper. Ninglu had never been kind to such people. "You." Hearing Ninglu's slightly mocking words, Yun Mu's face turned green and he said angrily, "The people who captured us this time are not simple. Their abilities should be between the peak of Saint Realm and Saint Perfection. Do you think Ningyu has the ability to save us?" Ninglu didn't want to talk to Yun Mu. A person like Yun Mu had a problem with his brain. "Shut up, all of you." Seeing Yun Mu getting angry, Tianji Laoren hurriedly said, "Last time when we were trapped in the Wuheng Cave, in the end, it was all thanks to Ningyu finding people to help us. This time, we are trapped in the Pill Emperor City. We should choose to believe in Ningyu. Besides, aren't Sun Feng and Chang Tian also trapped here? President Meng is very powerful. He won't just watch Sun Feng and Chang Tian die for no reason." As he spoke, the Elder of Heavenly Secrets turned his gaze to Sun Feng and Chang Tian. Being stared at by the old prophet, Sun Feng and Chang Tian's expressions turned somewhat grave. If they were caught by someone else, they believed that Meng Chang'an would come to save them. However, if they were caught by Gong Yangqing, Meng Chang'an might choose to abandon the two of them. After all, Gong Yangqing was very powerful, and he had two powerful fighters by his side. Creak. At this moment, the closed door was slowly pushed open from the outside. Then, an old man appeared in front of everyone. Gong Yangqing. The old man who entered the secret chamber was a 10th grade apothecary, Gong Yangqing. After they entered the secret chamber, Gong Yangqing's gaze first swept across everyone before it landed on little Chiline. Wearing out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it effortlessly. The moment Gong Yangqing saw the little Chiline, he revealed an excited expression. He was preparing to refine a high-grade monarch rank medicinal pill. And the medicinal catalyst of that pill was a Chiline. I have an important announcement to make now. After sorting out his thoughts, Gong Yangqing tried to calm himself down. In any case, he had already captured the Chiline and sealed its cultivation. In this kind of situation, there was almost no possibility of the little Kylin escaping. In other words, there was an 80% chance that there would be no problems during the alchemy at the Pill Emperor Square 3 days later. But what Gong Yangqing wanted was not that there would be no problems during the alchemy, but to think of a way to capture Meng Chang'an, Ningyu, and the rest during the process of alchemy. Very clearly, wanting to capture Ningyu was easy. After all, Ningyu was only a peak-level Sky Supreme cultivation. But wanting to capture Meng Chang'an, it would take a lot of effort. Gong Yangqing's purpose of coming here this time was to easily capture Meng Chang'an 3 days later. 3 days later, I will publicly refine pills at the Pill Emperor Square. At that time, all the experts in the Pill Emperor city will go over to observe. I will pick a few among you and accept them as in-name disciples. Gong Yangqing said in a clear voice. Swish. The moment Gong Yangqing's words fell, Old Man Tianji and the rest's expressions changed drastically. Nobody was a fool. Everyone was clear that on the surface, they were accepted as in-name disciples by Gong Yangqing. But in reality, that was not the case. Some of them were Ningyu's friends, and some were Meng Chang'an's friends. If they were accepted as in-name disciples by Gong Yangqing 3 days later, what would happen? Old Man Tianji knew. The reason why Gong Yangqing did this, there was only one goal. That was to force Ningyu and Meng Chang'an to appear. Gong Yangqing still had some worries in his heart. He was afraid that Ningyu and Meng Chang'an would not appear 3 days later, so he used this move to threaten them. Finishing this sentence, Gong Yangqing did not care about Old Man Tianji and the rest's reaction, and walked out of the secret chamber alone. Oh, right. However, just as he came to the door of the secret chamber, Gong Yangqing slightly paused, and said, "That elixir I refined, the medicinal catalyst is Chiline." Rumble. If it was said that Gong Yangqing wanting to accept a few in-name disciples made Old Man Tianji and the rest shocked, then Gong Yangqing's words after that made everyone incomparably shocked. Swish. In an instant, everyone's gaze shifted towards the little Chiline. The little Chiline and Ningyu's relationship was very good, not just an ordinary kind of good. Gong Yangqing wanted to use the little Chiline as a medicinal catalyst, and Ningyu would definitely come 3 days later. And under this kind of situation, Gong Yangqing accepting in-name disciples, no matter how they looked at it, was a little superfluous. Sun Feng, come out. Just as everyone was faintly shocked and puzzled, the secret chamber's door was pushed open again. A martial artist pointed at Sun Feng and said, "Master Gong Yangqing wants to talk to you." "Wants to talk to me?" Sun Feng pointed at his own nose, a little confused. His strength was not the strongest, and his relationship with Meng Chang'an was not particularly strong either. Even if Gong Yangqing wanted to find someone to talk to, it should not be him. Hurry up, don't dawdle. Seeing that Sun Feng was a little dazed, the martial artist outside the door said impatiently, "Master Gong Yangqing said that if you don't want to go, it's fine. I'll send you back to your hometown right now." "I'll go." Sun Feng's heart trembled, hurriedly moving his feet and leaving the secret chamber. Sun Feng left quickly and returned quickly as well. 3 minutes later, he was sent back. It was just that after returning to the secret chamber, Sun Feng's expression was a little ugly, even his entire body was trembling a little. "Chang Tian, come out." The martial artist who called for Sun Feng just now came over again. He pointed at Chang Tian and said, "Master Gong Yangqing wants to talk to you." Chang Tian looked left and right, then gritted his teeth and left the secret chamber. What happened next was very regular. Empress Chang Tian, Yun Mu, Talisman Supremacy, Zhong Qiong, Old Man Tianji, Ning Lu, and the rest were called out one after another. Everyone stayed outside for 3 minutes. And when everyone came back, their expressions were a little ugly. Close to half an hour passed, in the entire secret chamber, only the little Cheline was not called out. Drip, drip. And as time passed, it was clear that no one would come and call for the little Cheline anymore. What in the world is going on? The little Cheline frowned slightly and asked. The martial artist that the little Cheline asked was none other than Ning Lu. We might be in trouble. Chapter 1858. What? Hearing Ning Lu's words, the little Cheline nearly jumped up. Gong Yangqing left a trace of his soul in everyone's head and could control them to self-destruct at any time? If that's the case, then 3 days from now, Ning Yu will be doomed. Don't make a fuss out of nothing. I'm not too sure myself, because not everyone is the same as me. Ning Lu tried his best to lower his voice as he continued. Gong Yangqing first removed the seal in my body, allowing my strength to recover to its peak. Then, he wanted me to join him and betray Ning Yu 3 days from now. Although it had doubts in its heart, the little Cheline did not speak and quietly listened. I did not agree to it, so Gong Yangqing left a trace of his soul in my body. Ning Lu continued, as for the others, I'm not too sure. Because of their relationship with Ning Yu, there's a high possibility that they might betray him. Actually, Ning Lu already had a rough list in his heart. Ziyun, Old Prophet, Zhong Qiong, and Haoping, and Ji Yu Yang. They shouldn't betray Ning Yu. After all, Ziyun was still under his control, while Zhong Qiong, and Haoping, and Ji Yu Yang were under Ning Yu's control. Old Prophet knew the art of divination, so he shouldn't betray Ning Yu. As for Yun Mu, the Talisman Sovereign, Sun Feng, and Chang Tian, there's a high possibility of them betraying him. There was no other reason. Their relationship with Ning Yu wasn't too good, and Gong Yangqing would definitely promise them many benefits. Under the temptation of benefits, anyone could betray him. What do you intend to do? The little Cheline asked. That's simple. 3 days from now, I will personally deal with those who betrayed Ning Yu. An arc rose on the corner of Ning Lu's lips as he continued, but before that, I need your help. What help do you need? I'm like a clay bodhisattva crossing a river, and I can't even protect myself. I don't even know if I can live for 3 days, not to mention helping you. The little Cheline shook its head. Don't be modest. I need Kirin blood, a large amount of Kirin blood. Ning Lu said, as long as I have a large amount of Cheline blood, I will be able to break the soul force and seal that Gong Yangqing left in my body. Is that true? Little Cheline asked in surprise. Really? Why would I lie to you? Ning Lu patted his chest and promised. I can give you the Cheline blood. However, before I do that, I want to check the seal within your body, as well as the spiritual force that Gong Yangqing left in your body. Of course. Ning Lu nodded his head. He then completely opened up his mind and allowed the little Kailin to examine him. This matter concerned whether Ning Lu had betrayed them or not, so little Kailin wouldn't let its guard down for no reason. In order to find out who Ning Lu was, he didn't hesitate to force a drop of his own blood essence into Ning Lu's body. Kai Kai. As the essence blood entered his body, Ning Lu's body instantly emitted a sizzling sound. The seal is still there, and so is the soul power. Little Cheline slapped its palm on Ning Lu's back, slapping out that drop of blood essence from earlier. Little Cheline did not wish to probe Ning Lu's secret. Its mission was to probe whether Ning Lu was around or not, and not to probe Ning Lu's secret. In that short instant, little Cheline did not detect that Ning Lu was the world tree. To Ning Lu, as long as he did not expose the world tree's essence, he would not encounter any especially big trouble. In the next 3 days, I'll give you as much Cheline blood as you need. After taking back the essence blood, little Cheline's expression was solemn as it said, I hope that you don't disappoint me 3 days later. I'll do my best. Ning Lu's expression also became solemn. Whether or not he could break the seal within his body was extremely important to the matter 3 days later. Actually, among all the people in the secret chamber, The ones closest to Ningyu were probably him and little Chiline. If he could remove the seal within his and little Chiline's body within 3 days, then 3 days later, Ningyu's passivity would be reduced by a lot. Ningyu did not know what had happened in the secret chamber. However, even if Ningyu knew, he could do nothing about it now. This was because he was in an absolute state of tension after swallowing the elixir that Meng Chang'an had given him. Break. Ningyu's eyes were cold as he waved his hands repeatedly and shouted in a low voice at the same time. Bang! As the figure that Ningyu had mentioned sounded, another muffled sound came from his sea of consciousness. Hearing the muffled sound from his sea of consciousness, Ningyu revealed a look of surprise. I've finally broken through to the semisage realm. After several hours of swallowing and refining, Ningyu finally made a step forward and his cultivation reached the semisage realm. After advancing to the half-step saint realm, Ningyu could clearly feel that the vitality in his body had increased to a whole new level. Normally, Ningyu would not be in a hurry to break through to the early stage of the sage realm. Instead, he would choose to stabilize his cultivation first. But now, Ningyu had no other choice. He sat cross-legged again and began to practice the spiritual transformation method. As the elixir that Meng Chang'an had left behind had been almost consumed by Ningyu, Ningyu began to swallow the immortal crystals. Even for a sage realm warrior, it was a bit extravagant to use immortal crystals to cultivate, let alone a semi-sage like Ningyu. Buzz. A piece of immortal crystal was swallowed by Ningyu almost in an instant. In fact, when he was breaking through to the semi-sage realm, Ningyu had already cultivated the spiritual transformation method to the 9th level and was infinitely close to the 10th level. The 9th level of the spiritual transformation method increased the speed of swallowing immortal crystals by several times. In the past, Ningyu might need a few minutes or even more than 10 minutes to finish swallowing a piece of immortal crystal. But now that Ningyu had cultivated the spiritual transformation method to the 9th level, he only needed a few seconds to finish swallowing a piece of immortal crystal. Crack, crack, crack. In the following time, Ningyu kept taking out immortal crystals and throwing them into his mouth to chew. In just 10 minutes, Ningyu had already thrown dozens of immortal crystals into his stomach. If others knew about this situation, they would probably be scared speechless. Fortunately, I borrowed 100 immortal crystals from Meng Chang'an. Ningyu secretly rejoiced. He did not expect that after cultivating the spiritual transformation method to the 9th level, his speed of swallowing immortal crystals would be so fast. If he had not borrowed 100 immortal crystals from Meng Chang'an, let alone 3 days, even if he was given 10 days, he would not be able to break through to the sage realm. Now that he had 100 immortal crystals and the 9th level of the spiritual transformation method, Ningyu was very confident that he could raise his cultivation to the early stage sage realm within 3 days. Tick, tick. Time passed, minute by minute. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. When the 3rd day arrived, a terrifying aura suddenly rose from the city lord's mansion. Boom. Chapter 1859. Pill Emperor City, Pill Emperor Restaurant. Because Gong Yangqing was going to publicly refine pills at the Alchemy Emperor Plaza tomorrow, the Alchemy Emperor Restaurant was currently packed with people. However, when that aura soared into the sky, the originally noisy Pill Sovereign Restaurant suddenly quietened down. However, this silence didn't last for long, and it was quickly broken by all sorts of shocked discussions. Is someone trying to break through to the peak of the Sage Realm? Saint Peak? You must have lost your mind. In my opinion, this aura is not something that can be emitted by an ordinary peak saint. If I am not wrong, it should be City Lord Yi Jiansong who is trying to break through to the saint full circle. Voila! As soon as this cultivator finished speaking, the entire Pill Sovereign Restaurant was in an uproar. None of the cultivators that could come to the Pill Emperor Restaurant were weaklings. Even the weakest amongst them was a heavenly sovereign. These heavenly sovereigns naturally knew what it meant to be a perfected saint. However, due to the existence of the plane barrier, it was impossible for a sage in the celestial spirit realm to exist. Everyone understood this logic. Therefore, there was an uproar when the martial artist said that someone might be breaking through to the sage great perfection. I know Yi Jiansong. Although his cultivation is at the pinnacle of the Saint realm, he is still a long way off from the full circle Saint realm. At this time, a late-stage Saint warrior shook his head and said, if someone is really trying to break through to the complete Saint realm, it should be Meng Chang'an, President Meng. That's right. In the immortal spirit realm, Meng Chang'an is the strongest. He's the one with the highest chance of breaking through to the Saint Perfection realm. If Meng Chang'an is unable to break through to the Sage Great Perfection, then no one will be able to. Why don't we go to the City Lord Mansion to take a look? Suddenly, an unknown martial artist suggested. Someone was trying to break through to the peak of the Saint realm in the City Lord Mansion. Regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, it was a magnificent feat. Furthermore, with the descent of the martial practitioners from the higher planes, the native martial practitioners of the immortal spirit realm were constantly under pressure. The Devil Spirit Realm army was pressuring them from the outside, and the experts from the higher planes were causing trouble from within. Faced with internal and external troubles, all the immortal spirit realm experts hoped for a leader to emerge. Now, the terrifying aura coming from the City Lord's mansion clearly gave everyone hope. Let's go and take a look at the City Lord's mansion. The late-stage Saint Elder pondered for a moment and then said loudly, it doesn't matter if it's Yi Jiansong or Meng Chang'an, as long as someone's strength has reached the great perfection of the Saint realm or is infinitely close to it, we have to congratulate him. Voila! As the old man's words fell, the huge Pill Monarch restaurant was instantly emptied. The waiter in the restaurant looked at the empty lobby and rubbed his eyes, a little dumbfounded. If it weren't for the boss, they would have gone to the City Lord's mansion to take a look. At the same time, Alchemy Union, in a certain secret room. This aura, Gong Yangqing sat on the chair with his eyes slightly narrowed. There was a grave expression on his face. Although Gong Yangqing was not afraid of this aura, a master who could emit such a powerful aura was definitely not weak. Seeing that he was going to publicly refine the medicinal pill tomorrow, Gong Yangqing was naturally very unhappy that something happened at this time. Mo-minute, how confident are you in killing him? After thinking for a moment, Gong Yangqing asked a martial artist beside him. The cultivator beside Gong Yangqing was completely covered in black robes, revealing only 2 blue eyes. The old man stood where he was, as though he had fused with the void around him. If one did not look closely, one would not be able to tell that there was someone there. It's hard to say. Mo-minute said without hesitation, if the other party is a pinnacle sage, I have 50% confidence in killing him. If he is a late-stage sage martial artist, I have 70% confidence in killing him. Oh, you don't think that the other party is a pinnacle sage? Gong Yangqing was slightly stunned when he heard Mo-min's words. In Gong Yangqing's opinion, the owner of the aura had to be at least a pinnacle sage. If it weren't for the existence of the plane barrier, Gong Yangqing would even think that the other party was a great perfection sage. However, Mo-min's opinion seemed to be a little different now. I'm not very sure. Mo-minute shook his head and said, because in the terrifying aura, I can feel a trace of an early stage sage aura. Early stage sage? Gong Yangqing was stunned as waves of shock surged in his heart. Gong Yangqing had always believed in Mo-min's words. Since Mo-minute said that the other party might be an early stage sage, it meant that there was a high possibility that the other party was an early stage sage martial artist. It was just that Gong Yangqing could not figure out which early stage sage genius could emit a pinnacle sage aura at early stage sage. The possibility is very high. Mo-minute nodded and continued, do you want me to test the other party first? Test the other party's strength. Gong Yangqing fell into deep thought. Tomorrow was going to be the public pill refinement. It was more or less a little inappropriate to let Mo-minute test the other party's strength at this time. However, on second thought, Gong Yangqing felt that he had to test the other party's strength. Otherwise, what if the other party caused trouble at the Pill Emperor Square tomorrow? Even if he could not test the other party's strength today, he had to know what the other party's cultivation was and where he came from. If the other party was Meng Chang'an or Yi Jiansong, he would not need to be so anxious at all. After all, he knew Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an better. Even if it was really the other party, he could deal with it calmly. What Gong Yangqing was worried about was other experts interfering. Mo-minute, Make a trip to the City Lord's mansion. It doesn't matter if you can test the other party's strength or not. You must find out who the other party is and what his cultivation is. Gong Yangqing waved his hand and said, also, call Mo Ming back. I'm worried that something might happen tomorrow. Buzz. The instant Gong Yangqing's voice landed, Mo Min's body fused with the void and disappeared. Could it be him? Just when Mo Minute left, a cultivator flashed in Gong Yangqing's mind. But very quickly, Gong Yangqing excluded the cultivator that flashed in his mind. Ning Yu was only a heavenly supreme realm cultivator. His strength and talent were not particularly outstanding. All sorts of signs indicated that the owner of the terrifying aura could not be Ning Yu. Let's wait for Mo Minute to return first. I'll go and make some preparations in case I fail. Gong Yangqing took a deep breath and left the secret chamber. Although Gong Yangqing was powerful and had many trump cards, but for the public pill refinement tomorrow, the pressure on him was similarly huge. There was no other reason. Practically all the immortal spirit realm experts were gathered in the Pill Emperor city. He was powerful, and there was practically no one that could be his opponent in a 1 versus 1. But what about 1 versus 2, 1 versus 3, or even 1 versus 10? For safety's sake, Gong Yangqing decided to rearrange his plan. And the crux of the plan was the talisman venerable and the rest. Chapter 1860. Are you sure that Ning Yu wasn't possessed by some old monster? In the City Lord's manor, outside Ning Yu's chamber, Yi Jiansong, Meng Chang'an, Human Demon, Zhao Hang, and the rest all stood rooted to the ground, their eyes fixed on the door of the secret room. Especially Yi Jiansong, who had always treated Ning Yu as an ordinary heavenly sovereign. But who could have expected that Ning Yu would give him such a huge surprise? This surprise was too huge, to the point that Yi Jiansong was dumbfounded. How can he be possessed by an old monster? Meng Chang'an rolled his eyes and explained, Ning Yu's talent in the martial Dao is powerful, and in addition to the pellets that I gave him, he managed to reach the initial phase Saint Realm from the pinnacle Heavenly Sovereign Realm. What's there to be surprised about? Yi Jiansong's jaw nearly dropped. There was nothing to be surprised about from the pinnacle Heavenly Sovereign Realm to the initial phase Saint Realm. But after reaching the initial phase Saint Realm, he could actually emit an aura that's close to the perfected Saint Realm. Ning Yu's talent in the martial Dao has risen again. The Human Demon knitted his brows. I remember that when I first met Ning Yu, his talent in the martial Dao was powerful, but it wasn't stunning. But now, his talent has made me look at him in a new light. Ning Yu's talent in the martial Dao can be ranked in the top 10 in the demon spirit realm. I'm inferior to him. Zhao Hang took a deep breath and felt defeated for the first time. Before Ning Yu reached the initial phase Saint Realm, he could still suppress Ning Yu with his middle phase Saint Realm cultivation. Now that Ning Yu had advanced to the early stage of the Sage Realm, he knew that Ning Yu should be able to suppress him a little, even though there was still a gap between their cultivation levels. Senior Human Demon, what do you think of Ning Yu's strength? Meng Chang'an looked at the Human Demon and asked. He should be on par with you and Yi Jiansong. The Human Demon looked at Yi Jiansong, then back at the Human Demon. On par? Zhao Hang's eyes widened in disbelief when he heard the Human Demon's words. Originally, Zhao Hang thought that Ning Yu could only slightly suppress him after advancing to the early stage of the Sage Realm. If what the Human Demon said was true, that Ning Yu could contend with Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong, then Ning Yu wouldn't just be suppressing him a little, he could easily suppress him. Zhao Hang was a little dumbfounded when he thought about how Ning Yu was able to go from being easily suppressed by him to easily suppressing him just by raising his level. I don't think so. Yi Jiansong frowned slightly and said, I admit that Ning Yu's aura is terrifying, but he's only at the early stage of the Saint Realm after all, while I'm at the peak of the Saint Realm. Creak. At this moment, the tightly shut door of the secret room was slowly pushed open from the inside. Ning Yu walked out of the secret chamber. The current Ning Yu did not seem to have changed much. Even his cultivation base had been concealed. Are you at the early stage of the Saint Realm or the peak of the Saint Realm? Yi Jiansong stared at Ning Yu and asked doubtfully. It was no wonder that Yi Jiansong was doubtful. Generally speaking, As long as the opponent was weaker than him, he would be able to tell their cultivation base. Now that he couldn't tell Ningyu's cultivation base, could it be that Ningyu was stronger than him? Early stage of the Saint Realm. Ningyu smiled and changed the topic. Gong Yangqing will be concocting pills in public tomorrow. I hope that City Lord Yi will be able to help me then. Sure. But before that, I'd like to spar with you. Yi Jiansong nodded. You want to spar with me? Ningyu was a little puzzled. Yi Jiansong was a peak of the Saint Realm. It didn't make sense for him to spar with an early-stage Saint Realm martial artist. It's just a spar. 3 moves will do. Yi Jiansong said. Alright, 3 moves it is. Although he didn't know what Yi Jiansong was up to, Ningyu had a favor to ask of Yi Jiansong, so he couldn't refuse at this time. Please. Yi Jiansong stretched out his right hand and made a gesture of invitation. Then I'll do as you say. Ningyu stepped on the ground and his body sprang out in an instant. Since Yi Jiansong wanted to spar, Ningyu naturally wouldn't hold back. For the first move, Ningyu decided to use his full strength. Of course, Ningyu only used his full strength in Yuan Qi. As for the demonic lotus flame, heavenly fire cauldron, and other trump cards, Ningyu didn't use them. After all, he and Yi Jiansong were just sparring and not fighting to the death. There was no need to use all his trump cards. Senior human demon, can Ningyu really compete with Yi Jiansong? While Ningyu and Yi Jiansong were sparring, Meng Chang'an frowned slightly and asked. Although the human demon said that Ningyu's strength was on par with theirs, Meng Chang'an didn't believe it. After all, he and Yi Jiansong had been famous for many years. How could they be so easily surpassed by an early-stage Sage Realm cultivator? More or less. Under the premise that both sides don't use their trump cards, they should be evenly matched. The corner of the human demon's mouth rose as he said. However, before the human demon could finish his words, his expression changed slightly. He sent a soul message to Meng Chang'an. Someone's coming. I'll be back soon. As soon as the word back fell, the human demon's figure flickered and directly entered the void. Not good. Seeing the human demon disappear, Mo Minute, who was hovering in the void, had an unsightly expression. Actually, before Ningyu came out, Mo Minute had already arrived above the City Lord mansion and hid in the void. Mo Min's attention had already shifted from the cultivators in the secret room to the human demon. Not long ago, someone broke into the Alchemy Union and stole a treasure. At that time, Mo Minute wasn't in Alchemy Emperor City. However, from the words of the thief, he roughly guessed the thief's build. Now that he saw the human demon, Mo Min's sixth sense told him that the human demon was that thief. However, Mo Minute was very shocked. Because he couldn't see through the human demon's strength. In other words, if they really fought to the death, he might not be the human demon's match. Thinking up to here, Mo Minute decided to first watch the sparring between Ningyu and Yi Jiansong. After they finished, he would immediately return to the Alchemy Union to inform Gong Yangqing. Who would have thought that the human demon disappeared right after Ningyu and Yi Jiansong started sparring? No need to think, the human demon was definitely coming for him. Without much time to think, Mo Minute stretched out his right hand and hurriedly punched out. Bang! Catcher! Just as Mo Min's fist punched out, the human demon's fist appeared in the void. The two fists collided, and a crisp sound rang out. Let's wait and see. Feeling the tearing pain coming from his right hand, Mo Minute made a prompt decision and executed the blood shield art to escape. Even though it was just a hurried exchange, Mo Minute already determined the human demon's true strength. Above him, on par with Gong Yangqing, since I came, I got to leave something behind. The corners of the human demon's mouth curled up into a hint of an arc immediately, his right leg extended out abruptly. Catcher! This leg of the human demon's was powerful and heavy, directly kicking onto Mo Min's chest. Several ribs in front of Mo Min's chest broke on the spot. Bang! Forcefully enduring the pain coming from all over his body, Mo Minute waved both hands repeatedly. His body instantly vanished without a trace. Chapter 1861. The bead was red and only the size of a fist. What puzzled the human demon was that the bead gave off a terrifying aura. This aura even made his heart palpitate a little. Origin energy. While the human demon was still puzzled, Zhao Hang's figure flashed as he flew over. Hearing Zhao Hang's words, Ningyu and Yi Jiansong, who had yet to finish sparring, stopped at the same time. Origin energy was the most precious thing in the immortal spirit realm. It could be said that almost all the cultivators who descended from the higher realms had the goal of obtaining origin energy. Now that Zhao Hang said that the bead contained origin energy, how could they not be shocked? Zhao Hang, are you sure that this bead contains origin energy? Meng Chang'an's expression was solemn as he stared at the bead in Zhao Hang's hand. Because there was a seal on the surface of the bead, Meng Chang'an's feeling was similar to the human demon's. He could only tell that the bead was terrifying, but not whether it contained origin energy or not. After staring at the bead for a few seconds, Zhao Hang nodded heavily and said, "There is indeed origin energy in the bead, but the amount of origin energy is very small, so small that it is negligible." Very small? Meng Chang'an and the others were puzzled by Zhao Hang's explanation. If the amount of origin energy in the bead was negligible, then why was there a terrifying aura inside? Could it be that this bead was the bead that Mo Minute used to cultivate, and contained terrifying energy? We must find Gong Yangqing. Zhao Hang handed the bead to Meng Chang'an. He clenched his fists tightly, a determined expression on his face. It was obvious. Zhao Hang really needed origin energy. As for what Zhao Hang wanted the origin energy for, no one was very clear. Since you know that there is origin energy in the bead, can you extract it? Meng Chang'an stared at the bead for a few minutes, then used his perception to break the seal on the bead's surface. Unfortunately, no matter how hard Meng Chang'an tried, he couldn't break the seal. I won't be able to extract the origin energy from the pearl by myself. Zhao Hang said sternly, but with you guys, I'll have an 80% chance of extracting origin energy. Then what are we waiting for? Let's take out the origin energy first. Yi Jiansong took a step forward and said in a clear voice. Origin energy was a good thing. Even though Zhao Hang said that the bead contained very little origin energy, Yi Jiansong still wanted to see it. Zhao Hang didn't answer Yi Jiansong's question. Instead, he turned his gaze to the human demon. Among them, the strongest was human devil, followed by Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong. Moreover, the bead was snatched by the human demon. As long as the human demon didn't agree, Zhao Hang wouldn't make a move. Take out the origin energy and let Ningyu use it. The human demon thought for a while and said, Ningyu is now at the peak of the early stage of the Saint Realm. Let's see if the power of the bead can help him reach the middle stage of the Saint Realm. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. Zhao Hang looked at Ningyu and said, Ningyu's martial arts talent is very high. Plus, he just reached the early stage of the Saint Realm and stabilized his cultivation. His aura is between the peak of the Saint Realm and the complete Saint Realm. Maybe the power of the bead can help him reach the middle stage of the Saint Realm. Cut the crap. Tell me what to do next. The human demon waved his hand and said, all of you, inject your yuan qi into the surface of the bead. Zhao Hang took a deep breath and said in a low voice, leave the rest to me. Xiu. Since the human demon had spoken, Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an naturally wouldn't disobey him. They moved at the same time. The yuan qi in their bodies burst out and gathered on the surface of the bead. Whoosh! The human demon waved his hands. The yuan qi in his body was like a huge water column, completely covering Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong's yuan qi. He's so strong. Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an looked at each other when they felt the fluctuation of yuan qi from the human demon. They could see the shock in each other's eyes. Originally, the two of them thought that the human demon was only slightly stronger than them. When the human demon defeated Mo Minute, they felt that the human demon was much stronger than them. But now, they finally knew the human demon's true battle strength. Given the human demon's strength, the two of them wouldn't be able to last more than 3 moves in a one-on-one battle. Even if the two of them joined forces, they definitely wouldn't be able to pressure the human demon. The human demon's strength might already be comparable to Gong Yangqing's. Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong thought at the same time. After this thought appeared, it lingered in their minds and couldn't be erased. There was still one more day until the pill refining time that Gong Yangqing mentioned. In other words, tomorrow would be a fierce battle. Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong were still worried this morning. After all, they knew Gong Yangqing's battle strength. Moreover, there was also Mo Minute and Mo Ming on Gong Yangqing's side. Mo Minute and Mo Minute, their names only differed by a single word, but their strength was not much different. Now that Meng Chang'an and the rest knew the human demon's powerful battle strength, that taut thread in their hearts finally eased a little. Break for me. Zhao Hang did not care about what Meng Chang'an and the rest were thinking in their hearts. He waved both hands repeatedly, then raised his right hand and ruthlessly chopped at the round bead. Zhao Hang's right hand seemed to have magical powers. Wherever it passed, Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and even the yuan qi that the human demon released followed behind one after another. Zhao Hang gathered the yuan qi of the three forces at one point, then used all of his body's strength and blasted at the round bead. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. Under Zhao Hang's bombardment, a crack actually appeared on the round bead. Crack! 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 The crack was not obvious at first. But when Zhao Hang's right hand smashed down again, the crack on the round bead grew larger and larger, larger and larger. Finally, the round bead could not withstand the pressure and broke into two halves on the spot. Swoosh! Just as the bead broke, a cold light shot out from the bead, rushing into the distance at an extremely terrifying speed. Quickly stop it. This wisp of cold light is the origin energy. Seeing the cold light escape, Zhao Hang's expression changed drastically and he hurriedly roared. Swoosh! This was the moment that Ning Yu was waiting for. When Zhao Hang asked everyone to attack together just now, Ning Yu did not make a move. Instead, he stood on the spot, conserving his strength. Now that he saw the origin energy in the bead escape, Ning Yu naturally chased after it with all his might. Swish! Swish! The difference in speed between Ning Yu and the origin energy was not particularly large, but there was still a certain gap. Chapter 1862. Senior Human Devil, should we go and help Ning Yu? Ning Yu could determine that he could catch up to the source energy in over 10 seconds. Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and the rest naturally could determine it too. Only after determining that Ning Yu needed over 10 seconds did Meng Chang'an turn his head to look at the human devil and said solemnly. Because 10 seconds did not seem especially long, this was the Pill Emperor City. There were many experts here. By the time Ning Yu caught up to the source energy, most likely, everyone in the massive Pill Emperor City would know. Relax, I've already laid down an array formation around the City Lord Manor. That wisp of source energy can't escape. The human devil waved his hand, indicating for Meng Chang'an and the rest to calm down. The human devil's way of thinking was more advanced. He always had backup plans. Without laying down an array formation around the City Lord Manor, how could the human devil possibly watch Ning Yu chase after the source energy alone? That's good. Hearing the human devil's explanation, Meng Chang'an nodded. The worry in his heart instantly disappeared. As long as he did not leave the City Lord Manor, it was impossible for anyone to disturb him. After all, Yi Jiansong still had some prestige in the Pill Emperor City. He, a peak Sage Realm martial artist, his strength should be able to rank around top 10 among everyone in the Pill Emperor City. City Lord Yi, congratulations, congratulations. But right at this time, a loud shout suddenly sounded out outside the City Lord Manor. Congratulations. This baffling congratulatory voice made Meng Chang'an and the rest scratching their heads in confusion. Why would they come to congratulate without rhyme or reason? Could it be? Thinking up to here, Yi Jiansong and the rest's faces changed drastically. Other matters still had to be taken care of, but if they knew that there was source energy here, then the consequences would be too ghastly to imagine. Originally, their plan was to spread the news of Gong Yangqing having source energy, making Gong Yangqing become a public target. But now, if the matter of their City Lord Manor having source energy was known by others, they would become the passive group of people. It couldn't be a trap set by Gong Yangqing, right? At this moment, Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and the rest all said in unison. Mo-Min's strength was much weaker than the human devil's. Furthermore, Mo-Minute had already used the blood shield technique to escape. There was no reason for a round bead to drop. Furthermore, the bead just so happened to contain origin energy. A coincidence. It could be a coincidence. However, when countless coincidences were combined together, it would no longer be a coincidence. We can't rule out this possibility, but don't think too much about it. The human demon said, the reason why Mo-Minute dropped the bead was because he wanted to use it, but someone stopped him at the critical moment. Then what do we do now? Meng Changan slightly released his perception and asked. Meng Changan's soul perception was very strong. With just a bit of probing, he discovered that there was a large number of martial artists gathered outside the City Lord Mansion. Although these martial artists were all natives of the celestial spirit realm, it was possible that they were impersonators from higher planes. Once Ning Yu has gained control of the origin energy and devoured it, we can open the main gate of the City Lord's mansion. Human Demon thought for a moment, then said, when the time comes, spread the news that Gong Yangqing has source energy. Shoo. With that, Human Demon couldn't wait any longer. His figure flashed, charging straight for Ning Yu. Human Demon's intention was very clear. He wanted to help Ning Yu control a small wisp of origin energy. Do you think City Lord Yi will come out? Of course he will. We're here to congratulate him, not to do some shady business. Although that's true, there are so many of us. We might scare City Lord Yi. Look at the guards outside the City Lord Mansion. Their legs are a little weak. Outside the City Lord Mansion, a large number of martial artists had gathered. The intention of these martial artists was very clear. They wanted to see if the martial artist with the terrifying aura was Yi Jiansong or Meng Changan. If they didn't see Meng Changan or Yi Jiansong today, they definitely wouldn't leave. City Lord Yi, we mean no harm. We just want to congratulate you. A sage-level martial artist said in a clear voice. I'm very fortunate to have so many people congratulating me. Yi Jiansong didn't open the main gate. Instead, he stood in the courtyard of the City Lord Mansion and said loudly, everyone, please calm down. I'll go and open the gate after I'm done with my business. It's fine, it's fine. City Lord Yi, go ahead. We can wait a little longer. Yeah, we can wait for a few minutes. I hope City Lord Yi can show us later. You're very strong. Now that you've improved even further, you're probably infinitely close to sage great perfection. After Yi Jiansong spoke, many martial artists began to discuss. Everyone's focus was on how strong Yi Jiansong was and whether or not he had advanced to sage great perfection. Some said that he had advanced to sage great perfection. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a terrifying aura. Some said that it was impossible for him to advance to sage great perfection because of the existence of the plane barrier. There couldn't be a sage great perfection in the immortal spirit region. In short, all kinds of discussions could be heard. Drip, drip. Time was ticking away. It had been 20 seconds since Ning Yu and the human demon went to chase after the origin energy. In these 20 seconds, Yi Jiansong's expression changed from relaxed to serious. Is the origin energy so hard to control? Even senior human devil couldn't control it at the first moment. Yi Jiansong's expression became extremely serious. He even began to worry. There were so many people outside the City Lord Mansion. Although the strongest ones were only peak and late-stage sages, they had the advantage in numbers. He and Meng Changan alone couldn't control the situation. What if they announced that Gong Yangqing had the origin energy but couldn't produce any evidence? Wouldn't they be looked down upon? Whoosh whoosh. Just as Yi Jiansong was complaining, two figures, one in front and one behind, gradually appeared in Yi Jiansong and Meng Changan's line of sight. Ning Yu, can this bit of origin energy help you advance to the middle stage of the Saint Realm? After landing, the human demon stared at Ning Yu and asked. Shaking his head, Ning Yu said, with just this bit of origin energy, my cultivation can only be maintained between the peak of the early Saint Realm and the middle stage of the Saint Realm. I'm only one step away from the middle stage. This is for you. Ning Yu's words made the human demon take out an elixir without hesitation. The elixir was about the size of a fingernail and was blood-red in color. This elixir was refined by a 5th-grade Emperor-level alchemist. If you swallow it, you should be able to advance to Sage Middle Stage very quickly. Chapter 1863. Fuse with the origin energy. Hearing the human demon's words, Ning Yu, Meng Chang'an, Zhao Hang, and the rest trembled. There was no need to explain how precious the origin energy was. Since ancient times, they had never heard of anyone fusing with the origin energy. One must know that the origin energy was the foundation of the celestial spirit realm, and it even contained some law of order. Not to mention Ning Yu reaching the mid-saint realm. Even if Ning Yu reached the pinnacle saint realm, he might not be able to fuse with the origin energy. Others might not be able to fuse with the origin energy, but you can. The human demon smiled at Ning Yu. Everyone, guard the perimeter. You must protect Ning Yu. Make sure that not even a mosquito can fly in. Swish. With that, the humanoid demon leaped into the air and merged with the void. As for Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and the rest, they exchanged a look and retreated to the side helplessly. Truth be told, Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and Zhao Hang didn't believe that Ning Yu could fuse with the origin energy. But since the human demon had said so, there must be some logic behind it. They wanted to see if Ning Yu could fuse with the origin energy. Fuse with the origin energy? As the person involved, Ning Yu looked at the fingernail-sized blood-red pill in his hand with a solemn expression on his face. When the human demon mentioned fusing with the origin energy, Ning Yu's shock only lasted for a short moment before it quickly disappeared. There was a high possibility that the origin energy contained the law of order. Coincidentally, the law of space was in his spatial ring. When he left Giant Shield City, Ning Yu had found the law of space and placed it in his spatial ring. After a long period of cultivation, his law of space had reached the 8th-grade Earth Sovereign realm. The law of space was also a type of order energy. Although his law of space was only at the 8th-grade Earth Sovereign realm, he was still very powerful in his human form. Law of space. Do you have the confidence to fuse with the order power within the origin power? After taking a deep breath, Ning Yu began to connect with the laws of space in his storage ring. There is definitely a chance, but it's not too high, the law of space replied. Don't give me these empty promises. I'm going to break through to the Sage Middle Stage, and your task is to integrate the power of order in the origin energy for me. Ning Yu didn't give the law of space too much time to think. He raised his right hand slightly and threw the blood-red pill that the human demon had given him into his mouth. Ning Yu was not stupid enough to directly devour the origin energy. What he needed to do was to first refine the blood-red pill and try his best to raise his cultivation level to the peak of the early saint realm. At the most crucial moment, he would be able to devour the origin energy. This way, he would be able to break through to the middle stage sage realm in one go. Buzz. As soon as the blood-red pill entered his stomach, Ning Yu hurriedly activated the spirit transformation art. Ning Yu had already cultivated the spirit transformation method to the 9th stage, and he was only one step away from the 10th stage. Under such circumstances, the speed at which he devoured the blood-red pill was naturally very fast. In just a few minutes, the blood-red pill was completely devoured by Ning Yu. After devouring the blood-red pill, Ning Yu's cultivation level also advanced from the early sage realm to the peak of the early sage realm. He was only half a step away from the intermediate sage realm. Law of space, pay attention to your movement. Ning Yu took a deep breath before grabbing the origin energy with his right hand and forcibly sucked it into his body. Whoosh! Seeing Ning Yu absorb the origin energy, the law of space didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly turned into a shadow and entered Ning Yu's body at the same time. Boom! As soon as the origin energy entered Ning Yu's body, a rumbling sound erupted, and it immediately split into two. I was right, it's the law of space. Ever since he absorbed the origin energy, Ning Yu had been using the internal insight technique to explore the state of his body. When he saw that the origin energy was split into two, and one of them was the law of space that he was familiar with, he instantly became excited. As long as the law of space could devour the law of space that was transformed by the origin energy, he could easily devour the other pure energy. Law of space, it's up to you now. Although he was excited, Ningyu didn't lose his mind. The most important thing now was whether the law of space could succeed. If he succeeded, it would be fine. He could smoothly advance to the intermediate sage realm and completely stabilize his cultivation level. If he failed, the consequences would be unimaginable, because Ningyu didn't have the confidence to control the law of space that was transformed by the origin energy. Don't worry, leave it to me. The law of space was even more excited than Ningyu. Originally, when the law of space heard that Ningyu wanted him to deal with the origin energy, he was both excited and worried. He was excited that he could fuse with the law of space and smoothly improve his cultivation. He was worried that Ningyu had too much origin energy, and he couldn't succeed. Now that he saw that there was so little origin energy, the law of space instantly relaxed. If he couldn't even deal with such little law of space, then there was no need for Ningyu to say anything. He would buy a piece of tofu and kill himself. Don't be careless. Ningyu couldn't help but remind the law of space. It was good to be confident, but it was a bit unjustifiable to fail in such an easy task. Rumble. With Ningyu's reminder, the law of space gradually put away his arrogance and began to be cautious. I wonder if Ningyu can fuse with the origin energy. Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong didn't know what was happening in Ningyu's body. In other words, the fact that Ningyu had the law of space might only be known by the human demons. They didn't know that Ningyu had the law of space, so they were naturally worried about whether Ningyu could fuse with the origin energy. Because fusing with the origin energy, the most important thing was to fuse with the power of law. But ordinary martial artists didn't have particularly strong physical qualities. How could they withstand the corrosion of the power of law? Only some ancient deities could use their physical bodies to resist the power of law and fuse it into their bodies. Meng Chang'an and the others admitted that Ningyu's martial Dao talent was very strong, and his strength wasn't weak either. But strong talent and not weak strength didn't mean that he could fuse with the power of law. I think there's this possibility. Zhao Hang raised his head and looked at the human demon in the void. His expression was slightly solemn as he said, "The human demon comes from a higher plane. Even in a higher plane, he's an extremely powerful existence. He shouldn't be shooting without a goal. Do you think that if Ningyu advances to the middle stage of Sage Realm, his strength will crush us?" Suddenly, such a sentence popped out of Yi Jiansong's mouth. Although the sparring with Ningyu was interrupted midway, Yi Jiansong witnessed Ningyu's strength. In a spar, they should be evenly matched. Even if Yi Jiansong didn't use his full strength, Ningyu also didn't use his full strength. Chapter 1864. It's hard to say. I can't see through Ningyu. He seems to have a big secret. Meng Chang'an shook his head and said solemnly, "What we need to do now is to protect Ningyu as much as possible, and then have a good fight with Gong Yangqing at the Alchemy Emperor Square tomorrow." That's right. The stronger Ningyu is, the more advantageous it is for us. Zhao Hang added, "Not only do we have to have a good fight with Gong Yangqing, but we also have to snatch the origin energy from him. You should know that a small amount of origin energy can allow Ningyu to advance from the early stage to the middle stage sage. If we snatch a large amount of origin energy, doesn't it mean that we can advance to the sage great perfection, or even surpass the sage realm?" "That makes sense, but we can't be careless," Meng Chang'an said. Who didn't know the benefits of the origin energy? As long as the origin energy was used properly, it could even deceive everyone and display the battle prowess of the sage great perfection in the celestial spirit state. Gong Yangqing would definitely take good care of such an important thing. Rumble. At this moment, a rumbling sound was heard again. Along with the rumbling sound, a terrifying aura was emitted. The aura was so strong that it was terrifying. Outside the city lord's mansion, many martial artists opened their eyes wide and were dumbfounded. If the terrifying aura not long ago was someone advancing to the sage great perfection, how could they explain this aura? Compared to the previous aura, this aura was more powerful and had a greater fluctuation. Could it be Yi Jiansong and this is Meng Chang'an? It's hard to say. Yi Jiansong and Meng Chang'an are both at the peak of the sage realm. It's very likely that they are advancing to the sage great perfection together. Let's stop guessing here. When Yi Jiansong opens the door, the truth will be revealed. You're right. Let's wait a little longer. Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong did not know about the discussions and exclamations outside the city lord's mansion. At this moment, they were just as shocked as the people outside. This aura, Yi Jiansong's mouth was slightly open, and his face was filled with shock. Ning Yu has advanced to the sage intermediate stage. Meng Chang'an also lamented, according to my estimation, his strength is at least on par with mine. In some aspects, he might even be stronger than me. I didn't expect Ning Yu to make successive breakthroughs in such a short time. Zhao Hang felt like he was in a dream. Back in the Wu Heng cave, Zhao Hang clearly remembered that Ning Yu was only a late-stage Sky Supreme. In just a short period of time, Ning Yu had actually made a breakthrough from the late-phase Heavenly Sovereign Realm to the middle-phase Saint Realm. Moreover, Zhao Hang knew that with Ning Yu's current strength, it wouldn't take much effort to defeat him. At this time, Zhao Hang's mind began to become active. Back when he had saved Ning Yu had promised to help him snatch the origin energy. At that time, he was stronger than Ning Yu, so naturally, there was nothing to worry about. But now, Ning Yu's strength had far surpassed his, not to mention Meng Chang'an, Yi Jiansong, and the human demon. Even if he obtained the origin energy, how much could he get? Forget it, I'll think about it when the time comes. No matter what, I have to obtain enough origin energy. Shaking his head, Zhao Hang tried his best to calm himself down. He hadn't obtained the origin energy yet, so it was unrealistic to think so much now. Although the human demon was strong, Gong Yangqing wasn't someone to be trifled with. Everything would have to wait until tomorrow to see the results of everything. Whoosh! Ning Yu slowly opened his eyes and retracted his aura back into his body. Feeling the changes in his body, Ning Yu's eyes revealed a look of joy. Middle phase Saint Realm. He didn't expect that after devouring and refining the origin energy and the blood-red elixir given by the human demon, his cultivation would really rise to the middle phase Saint Realm. Advancing to the middle phase Saint Realm wasn't what made Ning Yu the happiest. What made Ning Yu the happiest was that he had really integrated with the origin energy. To be precise, a portion of the law energy had been integrated with the law of space. Now, the law of space had successfully broken through to the Sky Supreme realm. Although it was only the middle phase Sky Supreme, the strength of the law of space had greatly increased. With the law of space sharing the majority of the law energy, the remaining law energy was smoothly integrated into Ning Yu's body. Now, Ning Yu didn't need to rely on the law of space, but he could also slightly mobilize the law energy. Moreover, after advancing to the middle phase Saint Realm, Ning Yu's soul energy had also risen. Previously, the strength of Ning Yu's soul energy was at the level of liquefaction. But now, it had reached the level of liquefaction. It wasn't far from the peak of his previous life, Breaking Dan Realm and Emperor Realm. Ning Yu could almost imagine that as long as he found a few powerful Dan puppets, he could easily increase the strength of his soul energy to the Breaking Dan Realm and Emperor Realm. Ning Yu controlled a powerful soul Dan puppet. Without a doubt, it was Jiyu Yang, who was controlled in Four Corner City. However, Jiyu Yang was currently controlled by Gong Yangqing, and Jiyu Yang had fought many battles for Ning Yu. Even if Ning Yu swallowed Jiyu Yang, Ning Yu couldn't bear to do it. Swoosh! Before Ning Yu could thank Meng Chang'an and the others for protecting him, a cold light shot out from the void. Not good. The sudden change made Meng Chang'an and the others change their expressions, and they wanted to stop it. Let me. However, before Meng Chang'an and the others could make a move, Ning Yu waved his hand, exerted a little force in his legs, and suddenly leaped up. The Yuan Qi in his sea of consciousness gathered on his wrist, and Ning Yu threw a backhand punch at the cold light. Bang! The fist and the cold light collided, and a crisp sound was instantly heard. Kai Kai. Then, a fist suddenly shot out from behind Ning Yu. Ning Yu seemed to have expected all this. He hurriedly turned around and punched with his right fist again. Bang! The two fists collided. The fist behind Ning Yu stayed in place, while Ning Yu retreated several feet. He only stopped when his body hit the wall. Good, Your strength has improved a lot. After 2 moves, the human demon appeared in the void. There was no doubt that the martial artist who was fighting with Ning Yu was none other than the human demon. When the human demon saw that Ning Yu had advanced to the middle stage sage, he naturally wanted to test his strength. The human demon's test this time had basically confirmed Ning Yu's combat strength. In terms of physical strength and the density of Yuan Qi, Ning Yu was slightly stronger than Meng Chang'an and Yi Jiansong. He was comparable to Mo Minute. However, Meng Chang'an and Mo Minute were old foxes, and they had a lot of trump cards. With the addition of trump cards, it was hard to tell who would win. Even so, the strength that Ning Yu displayed was enough to shock the human demon. Have you integrated the nomological force of the origin energy? You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.